Studio is fresh from France, and we're talking about the new Africa France Summit 2021 and what it means for the creative industry in Africa. And Peter has just given us a whole different perspective to this new Africa. What does this really mean to Ugandan creatives, if you will break it down? We want to just, first before the Ugandan, but today, East Africa.
Indeed.
East Africa has a few relationship means to the African creative industry. And to start from the Africa perspective, then we'll narrow it down to East Africa and we'll bring it down to Uganda. What does this really mean to us? What is France saying to us?
Ultimately, creativity comes down to the building blocks of life.
Yeah.
Comes down to understanding.
Yeah. Comes
down to communication, to conversation, and to understanding each other. Understanding each other's customs, each other's cultures, each other's best points, each other's needs for encouragement or otherwise, and each other's inspirations. So one way of looking at it is saying, great, I mean, how do we communicate? What language do we use? Do we speak to each other in French, in France? Do we speak to each other in an African language in Africa? Do our French colleagues learn our languages? Do we learn their languages? Do we learn how to eat their food? Do they learn how to eat our food? Do we learn how to make it? Do we find interesting ways to find similarities between us? What do our grandmothers teach us? Could it be the same thing? What do our grandfathers teach us? Could it be the same thing as well? Yeah. And finding within that, within our cultures and traditions, a lot of similarities that we can build on. And that's one way of looking at it, kicking off. But then also, when we think of it from the other side, we also have similar challenges. We're all on Mother Earth. So the environment is important to all of us. Yeah. The future is important to all of us. The climate is important to all of us. And, little children who are being born and growing, we all want to make sure they live in a better world than we're in now. And so these are some of the few similarities we have in common, and I'm sure there's so many more. So what creativity is so important, and the industry of creativity is so important, is because it allows us to explore our similarities in many ways and accentuate them and build our relationships around those.
Wow. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Edio Kela. Mr. Peter Nyeko is in the studio, is fresh from France, and we're talking about the new Africa France Summit 2021 and what it means for the creative industry in Africa. And Peter has just given us a whole different, perspective to this new Africa. What does this really mean to Ugandan creatives, if you will break it down? We want to just, first before the Ugandan, but today, East Africa.
Indeed.
East Africa has a few spots that has a relationship with France. We are not necessarily a very deep French-speaking countries, but we are part of the African continent, which France is saying we need to have a new African relationship with us. What does this really mean to the Anglo-speaking countries in East Africa when France brings and starts this kind of conversation?
Awesome. What's interesting is, even if you go to England, if you go to the United Kingdom, and you look at the coat of arms of the royal family, there is there written, Dieu est mon droit. It's written in French.
Okay. Dieu est mon droit.
Dieu est mon droit.
Dieu est mon droit.
Yeah. So it's like, God and my right. Yes. And so already, even as we speak English, there is so much of France in the English that we do speak. Okay. We tell each other bon appetit when we're eating. Yes. And many other things. We say au revoir when we want to see each other again. Yes. But it's more than just that. In the end, Africa is a wonderful continent which has had interesting histories. The histories may have been joyful. They could be more joyful in other areas. But what's interesting is whether we look at history from one side of Africa or another side of Africa, there's a lot we can learn from history. And there's a lot we can work with what we know from history to make the future even brighter.
Yeah.
And that's what I see from this. There is so much that we here in Uganda, for example, have learned from our brothers and sisters in the more French-speaking parts of Africa, especially when it comes down to culture, fashion, music, and so on. I mean, over the years, as Uganda's own music industry was being built, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of music coming in from the Congo and other places, Pepe Kale, all these guys, before we had our own people on this side coming up with the music. So with music already, we've seen that conversation. With fashion, we still see that conversation all across. My shirt's made in Kampala, but the tailor was born in Congo. So, I mean, that conversation is already happening as we speak. We just want to take that conversation deeper and let it flow both ways. There's also a lot from the East African way of doing things that can be shared on the other side as well. The entrepreneurial way of life and a few other things as well. So that conversation is something which, you know, starts off in Africa, hence, you know, new in Africa, but it also flows in to France and other places because France has a lot of Africa in it as well. You know, not just in the last 100 years, but if you go historically way back, think of the Africans, you know, who were part of the Roman ecosystem as France became part of the Roman Empire. Think about the relationship going back, way back to those days, thousands of years ago. So it's not just 100 years.
This relationship has been there before.
It has been there. It's been there before, yes.
Now, Peter, we just want to encourage everyone to, you know, go onto our YouTube, subscribe, like, share far and wide. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter for those who are on the move. Twitter is live for you right there, and of course on our website. So any of those platforms that you're watching the program from, please go and share it far and wide. We're going to have a great conversation with Peter, and we're just trying to sort of like lay a ground to, you know, what does this, you know, New Africa, you know, France 2021 summit means to us going forward. Peter, you've broken this from the Africa perspective. We want you to just, and you've talked about it from the East African perspective. Let's bring it home. All right. Home is Uganda. And Uganda has been the home and the host to Alliance Francaise and the French embassy for many years. And the relationship has been working on. Back in the days, we used to have a lot of the French, you know, Alliance Francaise and UGCS, which is the Gautier Foundation. And all of this about promoting creativity, culture, and beginning to foster relationship for, you know, cross-cultural learning, for peace building. What does this mean when the French people and the president begin to say New Africa? What does it mean for Uganda and the creative industry?
Awesome. So new is an interesting word, you know. New is rebirth. You could think about it that way. Rejuvenation, you know. And new could be starting with where you are and discovering more within that and expanding upon it. And so we're saying it's amazing, you know. Many of us who are above a certain age will remember a day when there were lots of cars on Uganda's roads that were made in France. Do you remember what those cars were called?
Yes, Renault.
And?
Renault and the Peugeot.
And that one in French, what do they call it?
Peugeot.
Yes.
The 504, the 402, the 204.
Indeed. So there's enough of that in there already. But when we come to today, go to all the restaurants around Kampala, coffee shops, you'll find croissants all around Kampala. So I mean, it's already changing as we see. And we love that. But we're saying, what more is there? If we think about it from a different angle, we talked about creative industry. And creative industry, creativity and industry goes beyond fashion, goes beyond music, goes beyond dance, goes to the building blocks of industry itself. Because industry itself is creativity made real. And if we think about the creative industries of France, or the industries which are of a French origin, that have brought their creativity to Uganda. I mean, we know very well that very many Ugandan young people went to study about, engineering of a certain type, and there's a huge investment from a number of large French companies in Uganda, linked a lot to, other industries, whether you're thinking it from the point of view of energy, or you're thinking it from the point of view of water, or from the point of view of logistics, or from the point of view of infrastructure and roads. When you think about it from that angle as well now, you go, how big is France's investment conversation with Uganda?
Okay, that's a very interesting conversation to have.
And when we think about it from that point of view, is it a fleeting investment or is it an investment for the ages? If it is an investment for the ages, if that investment will be there for generations, our conversations should also be built on building blocks that can go on for generations. Therefore, the communication has to be renewed in many ways. We have to find new and more interesting ways to understand each other even more. Who knows, maybe I speak to someone in France in French, and they speak back to me in Luo. Maybe we'll try something like that. Who knows? Maybe I'll go to France and have Luombo in Paris, and they'll come to Kampala and have croissants in Kampala. Who knows? I mean, we already have, Ugandan fashion designers based in France, don't we? There's a lovely lady
we
there.
Have Stella Tal based in France. We have another lady based in France, and Stella actually has been teaching in a French school.
Awesome, awesome, indeed.
For these years, and she's been teaching people our culture in a preschool.
Yes.
And of course, teaching also people in community.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, and we've hosted her on creative industry quite a bit.
Fantastic. And then down the road here, we've got the Alliance Française. Around the corner, we've got the École Française, but many Ugandan schools are teaching French, and Ugandan universities as well are teaching French. And a lot of our professional public sector servants in different sectors of government are quite fluent in French. I've had conversations with people in agriculture who speak French as well as you could possibly imagine, and so on and so forth. So the building blocks are there. But now we need to say, great. Uganda is a very young country. We've got great building blocks. How can we build on from these building blocks and involve these young people who are the future of this country in this conversation? And that's where it becomes really interesting. And that's what takes us to the speech which was made by His Excellency the President of France in Ouagadougou in 2017, which went on to what happened a couple of weeks ago in France, with people coming together, conversations being frank, honest, respectful, hopeful, and positive. And that's really exciting from that angle. If you go and follow on Twitter or on the internet, and just Google, in English, because all those websites now are in English as well, even though they're obviously in French as well, but you Google New Africa France Summit. Okay? When you Google that, you'll find so many interesting websites linked to that. And it takes you to a lot of the interesting initiatives that were birthed out of the redefining of the conversation that started in Ouagadougou a few years ago, and that have been augmented by the deeper conversations had the other week, where we had a number of Ugandans actually on stage, both ladies and gentlemen, but others from across the continent. And now, for those in the traditional creative industries, as well as any other industries which are creative, because they all are, there are so many things that you can find there which can help you be part of improving this conversation while moving forward with your hopes and dreams as colleagues building the hopeful future for this continent.
Wow.
They always say that the greatest asset you have in every organization is human beings. So leadership starts with you and how you interact with the people around you, you know, even in your home. The truth is, if you're not able to lead your home very well, you can't lead anything else.
Wow.
So leadership starts with you. And if you set that example, others will follow you.
I want to know, what is it like to be the president and the CEO of Baywood Continental, Baywood Group, and all these things going on? How do you manage?
You got to stay focused, and you have to have your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Eye on the ball, always. Watch that ball to succeed. Make it success, not minding the challenges.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Chris Baywood Ibe. Why the youth?
They're the future. I don't care, but they're the future. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. But you know what? That step does not guarantee you're going to reach to that destination.
Yeah.
Continuous working will ensure you get to that stage. So, one of the things that I pride myself for is that you don't need to have billions to be a philanthropist. Right? Yeah. I did it, and I found the secret to success. It's giving.
Welcome back. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, and in the studio is engineer Peter Ben-Hur Odokonyero Nyeko. He is also the proprietor of, the CEO of Manduli's Energy, and of course Ripal and Chakula. These are all brands under him, and the creative space is what Peter does. Peter is a dancer and is an Arabic teacher. He speaks French, and he speaks Luo, he speaks English fluently, and he speaks Spanish. Now, these are all facets of creativity in one man. Who is better fit to be on this show? And he was one of the people who were in France speaking in French with the French president representing Uganda. And of course, on that summit that we had in France a few days back or weeks back. Peter, welcome back to the program. We want to go back from the point where we're discussing the New Africa France Summit 2021.
Yes.
Now, the opening of the conference, let's start from there. What does it really mean for creativity in Uganda? We saw the French president and the French people open that summit with a dance from the African lady, and one seemingly looking like Italian, and then the African dance was on stage, and everything was about that. And in that moment, what was it trying to communicate to Africa and to, the creative industry?
Thank you so much. I mean, being African and being in that room, you could say it was interesting, it was vibrant, and it was welcoming. And anyone who had come in and may have felt a bit cold warmed up. The ice was broken. It was possible to now be open, fully open, and feel when you open an event with the kind of music that makes you move, get off your feet, and sweat a little bit. The conversation thereafter is fully open.
Yeah.
Nothing's held back. So that was very interesting from that point of view. But also the fact that those who may have been in France for the first time suddenly thought, wait, I'm from Chad, I'm in France, there's a Chadian musician on stage. Or I'm from Bujumbura, I'm in France, there's a Bujumburan dancer on stage. And thinking, wow, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel welcomed, I feel at home.
Yeah.
That's the message which everyone could basically feel. But at the same time, the fact that you had people from France who are not from an African origin joining in and having, even more fun than we're used to having to that same music, meant
Yes.
we're all one family.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. And it made a difference because it was a very young audience, an audience where I may have been one of the few people who were not as young. That made a difference there as well. But when we got to the point where the head of state welcomed everyone and had a stage with very young people on it and very open conversations in French and in English on that stage, which you can all see online. You can go to the website, of New Africa France Summit. You can go to the website of the Elysee Palace, or the entire 3.5 hour, big event at the end of the summit is all there online. But you can see everything else as well as the other conversations. But early in the morning, because this happened in the evening to close it, but in the morning and in the early afternoon, you had different sections of the summit where you had the business people having their mini summits, and a Ugandan spoke there. You had the creative industries having their conversations, and a Ugandan spoke there as well. You had the environmental side of things, and you had the sports side of things. So now you see business, environment, sports, creativity. That's what makes it so interesting. Everything that we are really vibrant with as a continent and as a world going forward.
Wow.
Yes.
Peter, so that moment communicated connectivity according
Yes.
to you. That moment communicated that we are welcome. That moment communicated that the things are starting from a new, perspective. It was a moment for reflection for very many people, including myself, when I was looking into that. Earlier on, we had had a series of events all across, I think, Uganda, when they were preparing toward this day. And one of the things that struck me most was a film that was screened, in preparation leading to the conference. It was about Don't Film. The film was titled Don't Film Me. And when we watched this film, there was this scene in the film where, the director and the producer comes and he pulls out the sweets and the chocolate and give it to the children, and the children speak, and then somebody comes and says, "Why do you give them the chocolate? Did you ask them if they want the chocolate? What if they want cassava? What if they want this? What if they want this?" And that moment simply just came out alive. And we were having a conversation in that moment and saying, look, when we hear now the new Africa-France relationship, and looking at the past where, the Western world would always just come and give. They assume that this is what you need and then just give you. From the creative point of view, they would come here to come and write the story and tell the story of an African man or woman without talking and getting their perspective. The French president and the French people seems to be saying, no, we now want this story to be told by you. And that's what I saw on the stage. And that's what I saw, the choreography and, the dance, the culture that was being fused on there was telling a lot of things in the background. Where does this leave us with our, the previous mindsets of this is how it is to the new mindset that is trying to be shaped at the moment by the French people?
What's most interesting is on that journey that we went to and in the conversations that we had, the first thing is New Africa.
Yeah.
We felt the New Africa so much because we got to meet other Africans who we may have not met otherwise.
Yeah.
Africa is not as connected and interconnected as it could be.
Yeah.
So to have an opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs, other creatives, other young people from other African countries, where you spend a week together and interact and share and learn and build on for a better future was even bigger than any conversations that were had with France.
Yeah.
what was great there was you'll find a difference, you'll find a change from the relationships that were built amongst the Africans who had actually gone.
Yeah.
That's kind of one way of looking at it. Secondly, obviously, as you did say, at the event, it was no holds barred. There was every bit of honesty. There was a lot of truth. There was a lot of understanding and coming to terms with the more difficult parts of the history of this relationship.
Yeah.
And it was crucial in that it is now called the new Africa-France Summit. And it follows the alphabetical order. Though previously, many years ago,
Yeah.
it was the other way around.
It was France-Africa relationship.
Indeed.
Yes.
So you could say the focus is more on following the alphabetical order now.
Yes. I see where you're coming. I see the point.
Yes.
Peter, that said, does that now mean that from a creative point of view, down here in Uganda,
Yes.
we can now begin to think about what are our creative, works here, businesses that we also start here? Can it begin to go and open up stores in France? Can Ugandan, creative people also, Africa creative people also go and invest in France? Because there's been the trade balance between, France and Africa, to be specific, and in Uganda, is more of the France investing in Uganda and less of Uganda investing in France. Now, I want to look at from that point of view. If we're thinking now creatively, and there are products, of course, we now have people like Stella Attal in France. Does that mean Attal can come up with a factory or, set up a factory in France? Does that mean that Pfizer Chiwewa, that was part of, the delegation, can set up, a festival of a Baimba festival in France and run it in France without any limitation? Does that mean like Dawoodi, Karunji and the many likes, and yourself, can you go and start a farm in France and also, build your product there and run your product? Did you see that sense and that kind of sense in the conversation? I know some conversation on stage was quite tensed.
Yes.
I saw some people from the western part who were quite very tough at the moment and the French president remained calm, and everything was like, okay, we take this from you and we continue to, build this relationship. So that moment that was very tensed of some great exchange of ideas on stage were quite very telling, and it came out as a way of some people feeling still hungry about some of the things that happened in the past. Others are saying, no, this is it. This is the moment. This is the new Africa France. We are moving forward. What did you feel while sitting there? As an investor, that's number one. As a creative mind in France, as a man who actually acts in the theater, what opportunities did you see that the creative art can actually, present itself and do in France?
Interesting. The conversation is getting quite wide now.
Yes.
But I'll go back to what you started with.
Yes.
One thing we all know about France is, France is happy, joyful, and proud to be France. That's the first thing we can learn from France.
Yeah.
France knows all about France. France celebrates France. France celebrates its history, its cuisine, its language, its music, its culture. So when we want to have a conversation with France, it helps if we also come from a point of celebrating our history, our culture, our heritage, our food. Then we can have it, because the conversation involves exchange.
Yes.
So we have to have something to bring forward. And if we don't yet understand ourselves fully, if we don't yet celebrate ourselves fully, it's difficult to begin to share what we ourselves don't yet understand. It takes us back to earlier conversations we had about what is Uganda, what is being Ugandan.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, first of all. France is very sure what France is. I can be comfortable about that.
Yeah.
You will never find anywhere in the world, a Bordeaux wine
Yeah.
done the way it's done in Bordeaux.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yes, that's true.
You will never find Camembert cheese done the way they do Camembert in France. Have we got to a point where we can say, do we have a bucotto pie, which is the only way to cook that pie in the whole world?
Yeah.
So when we go to Montpellier,
Yeah.
we can get something from there and share with them that. So that's one way of looking at it. We've got to focus a bit more and really learn to celebrate ourselves. You know, can we have our equivalent of what is celebrated at the Louvre in Paris?
Yeah.
Can really celebrate that heritage to that much? That's important from that traditional creative side of things.
Yeah.
But when you go to the other side as well, I mean, of course, you know, I am very confident that Ugandan businesses in any sector who are able to dream,
Yeah.
plan, and realize can fly to France and invest in any part of France as well. I mean, of course, you've already mentioned a few businesses in the creative industry already who already invested in France.
Yeah.
But in other industries as well, that can happen. In the knowledge industry, you know, in many others.
Yeah.
What makes it even more interesting now is investment is not only physical, you know, it's not only in hardware.
Yeah.
Now you've got the internet. You've got developers in Uganda, developers elsewhere who can develop Ugandan apps that could be used in France. But now it shouldn't be only about we create something, we put it on a ship, and we ship it out, and we get paid for it.
Yeah.
That's, when we go new, we've got to think beyond that now and
Yeah.
go, okay, let's not say, all right, great, let's have something for them to buy.
Yeah.
No, let it be a conversation as well from that point of view.
Yeah.
And let's say, is there something we can take from our learnings of how we have overcome some of our challenges in Uganda? Is there something we can take from that to invest in a part of France that may be facing similar challenges, that could learn from how we solve these challenges?
Yeah.
I'm sure with a bit of research we can find a few areas where we can share.
Yeah.
The same way France has been able to share with us so much on the technological side, in oil and gas, you know, in infrastructure, in water services, and so much more.
And that said, Peter, I
Yeah.
just want to take you deeply on that part
Yeah.
of the conversation. So, was that the sense that you picked from there while you attended the New Africa France Summit 2021, when the French president was talking, when all the presenters were on stage and talking? Did you see that as a person from Uganda, from the creative, that you think this is the creative side that we need? Did you see the sense of what you're talking about?
What's exciting is
Yeah.
I saw it, I felt it, and you know, I could see others also acting on it.
Yeah.
What's interesting from that point of view was those of us involved in business
Yeah.
went a few days earlier. We were there on Monday. We had events on Monday and Tuesday within the premises of the French government. Mm-hmm. We had another summit on the Wednesday and the Thursday. So we had a lot of time to interact with business people from France. We had the opportunity to book meetings with them in advance.
Yeah.
We had opportunities to share our profiles
Yeah.
and learn more about how they do things, but also go towards a point where we can actually do business together with them.
Yeah.
Not just in France, but also in other parts of Africa
Yeah.
where doing business with French colleagues would make a massive difference. So all that opportunity was there on the table. It just came down to saying, great, are we able to prepare in advance, go there, learn how to communicate emotionally, through word, through exchange of culture, but build from that, you know, our needs to make a difference through business and otherwise. And I think there's so much of that which was there.
Yeah.
Not only do I think, I'm pretty sure, because on but I know it takes time. In my own interactions with businesses in France, which started way earlier than this, I would say it's the same as my interaction with businesses in other countries as well.
Yeah.
It takes time to build something, but you've got to have patience, confidence, and a willingness to learn and continuously improve and build.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that can happen there. But the difference today is this. With the ecosystem that this summit has given us, when my colleagues and I went to France in 2015, we didn't have this ecosystem. We went out there and, we followed, the book, as you may, and got to somewhere. I'd say 7 years on, we've got to somewhere. But the difference now is this. The young people who went there this time around, they've got the ecosystem of the new Africa-France Summit around them. They've got the support structure. They were looked after really well for the entire time they were there, treated as any high-level delegation would have been treated. Beyond that, there's a lot of support from the French ecosystem in each of the countries where they are from, be it through the embassies or through the Alliance Française, but even going a bit further and looking at the new initiatives which have been deployed alongside this summit. If you go to the new Africa-France Summit web pages online, you'll find initiatives that have been set up specifically for different industries. I know of 2 in particular for the creative industry, and you can go online and check those out. And there are incubators where you can go with your idea, build it up, and get it to a point where it's robust and can last a distance. So if we all know Yves Saint Laurent, French brand, could we get a Ugandan brand in fashion going on to one of these incubators and accelerators, and building up, getting to a point where they have strengthened themselves as a brand and as a business, and they're able to access funding as part of that as well. So there are 2 different things you'll find on the website, which includes support, incubation, funding, and further investment. And it's being led by none other than the French Development Agency, Agence Française de Développement, which is, wow, it's the same entity that's supporting infrastructure, roads, and so on. That same entity is now supporting the creative industry. That means so much.
Okay. I want to just ask you one more question, Pete, before we go for a break. You're obviously breaking this down, and to everyone out there, we're talking to Engineer Peter Nyeko, who was at the new Africa-French Summit 2021 on the invitation of the French embassy in Uganda and the French government. And of course, they came back with a different perspective, which we need to dive into to understand the different perspective that will allow us to shape the attitude and perception of the local people going forward. Relationships mean 2 must be in communication. They must be talking. What is your say? What is your comment about the new Africa-France relationships? Have a say, send us a comment or kisses or disses, and let us know what your thoughts are. Peter is breaking down what he has seen at the conference, and for the next couple of days, we're definitely going to be discussing the new Africa-France relationship. What does it mean for us in the creative industry? Every sector in Uganda or anywhere in the world needs a creative mind. A creative mind is a person who think about something, think about the solution to the problem, creates the product that is needed in the market for us to be able to move forward. It is a solution based. So if we're talking about the new Africa, then we've got to be able to make sure that this is actually something that we're all working together to make sure it works. Peter, coming back to you. The attitude in Africa is different. If you have been in a relationship where you felt like the relationship in the past wasn't okay, some would say, take for example, if you felt like the relationship in the past was very aggressive or was quite abusive to you or quite demeaning to you, and now the relationship is changing and it's beginning to look like we're starting from a new fresh page, forget about that. We saw that on the stage when the French president actually apologized. He started this in Ouagadougou sometime, and then again this time around he apologized. And some of the young people took it upon themselves to say, this is the only chance we have to talk to the president of a different country like France. You know, you don't quite get that in the US, you know, in the UK or any other countries that are quite very eminently placed in Africa. It was something different. But then again, there's an argument that maybe because he's young, maybe because the other one don't understand as the young, maybe because the older generation don't understand the younger generation. What does that communicate to us? What was the feeling like in the room when it says, we are sorry for whatever has happened in the past, for whatever our ancestors have done, for whatever our background has done, for whatever our relationship has been, we are sorry. How did the people who are seated in that place, the young black Africans, look at it, particularly from the point of witness as Peter?
Awesome. So what's interesting is we shouldn't think of history as 50 years or as 500 years.
Yeah.
Let's think of history as history. And if we look back only 50 years, we can see it from only one angle. If we look back 500 years, we can see it from a different angle.
Yeah.
If we look back 5,000 years, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Remember the time when you may have been a pharaoh?
Yeah.
Right here where we're sitting right now,
Yeah.
when the superpower
Yeah.
was the country,
Yes.
the civilization around these waters called the Nile.
Yeah.
Imagine if there was a new France Africa summit then,
Yes, yes, yes.
hosted by the pharaoh.
Yes, yes, yes.
What was the relationship then?
Yeah.
There are cycles in history.
Of course.
And we can't, I mean, this is my opinion, but I believe we can't focus only on one part of history
Yeah.
and forget that there has been cycles for quite a while.
Yeah.
I went all the way back to ancient Egypt, but we can go even closer to the Roman Empire. And we can think of the Africans within the Roman legion
Yes.
who were part of the conquest of France and other places. We could think of the Africans who were part of the conquest of most of Europe during the time when, you know, we had the Moors.
Yeah.
And the Saracens, you know, in Spain and in Italy, which is kind of near France as well.
Yeah.
History is really interesting. And we've got to think of it and say, great, ultimately, you know, whatever happened 50, 500 or 5,000 years ago, let's look at it holistically and let's look at it with hope. Let's look at it with honesty. And let's look at it with the point of view of building a brighter future where the kids who are yet to be born are able to interact and communicate in a beautiful way. And that's what can build the kind of world we all want to see. And that's what I feel we may have had a bit of a building block of during those days. And it may have been a breath of fresh air for that first step. It is always a first step.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done beyond this. People who went have to communicate with each other. People who hosted have to communicate with those who went. People who went have to, you know, people have to figure out how can we take this spark and turn it into a flame and sustain it and build it even bigger and better going forward.
Yeah.
So a seed has been sown. It has been planted. And, you know, the doors have been opened. Now it's important for all of us to make the most of it moving forward.
Yeah.
There are still opportunities to make mistakes. Mistakes are still being made as we speak. But this honesty allows us to now look at things from a different point of view and go, Can we learn from mistakes done before? Can we learn from mistakes being done right now? Can we tweak what can still be tweaked?
Yeah.
Can we make a difference going forward?
Yeah.
And it all comes down to communication as a first building block. Because if I'm working with you and you're from France, let's say, or you're from a part of West Africa that only speaks French, I could start by learning some French. And then as we work together, I'll share some jokes with you, you'll share some jokes with me, then you'll teach me some Luganda. And as I learn it, we will be more than just two people who have different cultures.
Yeah.
We'll be two people who appreciate each other's cultures and look for the similarities between our cultures and encourage each other to be proud of our heritage and move hand in hand that way. So that's part of what we can really take a look at, especially as we move forward. And there is so much more that will come of it as a result. But if we look at it only as a fantastic event, fun was had, good food was eaten, maybe some fundings got here and there, that's not the solid rock upon which we can build a sustainable future of hope.
Wow.
We've got to go beyond that. We've got to look inwards and say, great, when I saw the Louvre, what will I do with my museum? And say, when I learned about this institute that protects the French language and makes sure it's, understood and appreciated, what will I do with my own languages on this side? When I look at little things like that, when I now say, great, beyond that, what have I seen in Côte d'Ivoire that could benefit from the way I farm in Kirandongo? What have I seen in Mali that can benefit from the way I drill water in Karamoja? Can I share some of those things on that side as well? So we've got to look beyond just France and Uganda, or Uganda and Côte d'Ivoire, but look at ourselves as human beings, and look at ourselves as people who are all little newborn babies at some point, identical in every way, with the same needs, same hopes, same dreams, and same fears, to simply stay alive and be happy. When we build from that newborn within each of us, we're able to build that new Africa, France, and Africa world relationship.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and this is House of Talent Television. In the studio is Engineer Peter Nyeko, who is the CEO of Mandali's Energy, and of course REPAL, which is renewable energy powering livelihood, renewable energy powering agriculture in agricultural livelihood. Peter will come and tell us about that. But I just wanted to know, he's also REPAL and he's also Chakula, and I just wanted to break that ice for you so you can know that from a creative point of view, Peter is actually a very serious person. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
How do I respond in France? When you say Mexico, what do I say next?
Merci beaucoup is basically thank you very much.
Yes. So how do I respond?
De rien.
De rien.
Yeah.
Okay. De rien, Peter.
Okay.
So a quick one. Let's talk about REPAL. Can REPAL go to France? And what is REPAL for everyone? Can REPAL set up in France with this new new Africa-France relationship? Can REPAL also move to France and invest in France?
Thank you very much. Ripal is a company I work at, and I was blessed to be part of the team that set it up. We already have quite strong partners from France. We work very closely with a French NGO. We work very closely with a French new energy company, and we are doing a lot of work right now in Uganda, and we are looking to do more work in other parts of Africa. But beyond that, what has birthed out of our work focusing on renewable energy, powering agriculture and rural livelihoods, has been discovering a way to innovate the possibility for electricity in a village to be cheaper than electricity in the city for industrial productive use.
Yeah.
That's an innovation that came out of an Africa-France synergy, incubated in Uganda, and now able to be shared with the world, enabling us to figure out that huge issue. Uganda's president talks a lot about the importance of low cost of electricity for industry.
Yeah.
He talks a lot about the importance of value addition.
Yeah.
This innovation that's been birthed from a France-Uganda ecosystem, from a France-Africa system, has helped realize that already. Yeah. And we'll be sharing that with other parts of the world. Yeah. But the digital parts of that, and part of our digital ecosystem, actually involves another startup, which is Ugandan birthed, which is actually incubated in Toulouse, in France, and is already sharing a lot of knowledge at the forefront of the aerospace industry in Europe, including France. So there are no limits to that conversation.
Yes, yes.
And whatever you're doing, just make sure you do it to the very best of your ability. Make sure you do it so that it not only makes Uganda proud, it not only makes France happy, but it makes the whole world glad and grateful. Yeah. And that's the angle that we're basically pushing. Every one of us has one idea that we may not think much of, but with the right ecosystem, with the right nurturing and the right building, can become something. So if our dear friend, our dear sister in France, in fashion, if she was going to set up a factory, she could even get the investment in Uganda to set up a factory in France. Who knows? What if she finds a way to interact with some of the big French brands out there? Some of the biggest French brands in fashion, in lifestyles, are already working with deep tech and engineering to engineer some of the stuff that they are doing. But who knows, maybe she's got ways to even interact with some of the stuff they're doing. Maybe they can set up joint ventures together. Who knows? Maybe she can come to one of her friends in Uganda who's built an arcade and invested 10 million euros already in Uganda from their own pocket. Maybe someone like that could even invest in such a Ugandan, enterprise based out of France to then go from France to other parts of Africa. France is actually a very good base to be if you're going to now go and take a Ugandan innovation to West Africa.
Yeah.
From a base in France, you can do that. If you're going to go to other parts of Africa, which may not speak French, because we found people there who speak Arabic, who speak Portuguese, who speak Afrikaans. Africa is more than just French and English. It's just got so many good things there, including Kiswahili. So, of course, I speaking more from my hat as a board member at l'École diplomatique de Kampala, Kampala International School, I very much encourage young Ugandans, Ugandan parents, to encourage little kids growing up to just go online and figure out what are the official languages of the African Union. My prayer is learn all of them. Learn all of them, be fluent in all of them, so that you can be fully African. I want to go to Bloemfontein and speak in Afrikaans. I don't yet speak in Afrikaans, so I've got a job to do. I've got to learn Afrikaans so I can go to SA and be relaxed. I've got to improve my Portuguese so I can go to Playa in Cabo Verde You know, there's a great man from Cabo Verde in Uganda who's the head of FAO here. I want to go visit Antonio in his home and speak to his people in his language. You know, I want to go, you know, to Morocco and speak to them in, you know, in Maghrebi. You know, it would be great to be in an Africa where we don't need translators.
Wow.
Where, if you're in my village, we will shortwave. If I'm in your village, we'll medium wave. If we're in his village, we'll long wave. Either way, we'll communicate.
Yes.
And that would be so exciting. And that's the biggest thing I got out of these last 2 weeks. The fact that you can bring people together, they'll have one thing in common. Every one of us had a penchant for croissant. Penchant is another word in English that was taken from French, and we now own it in English, right? I like croissant. But everyone in there definitely had croissant for breakfast. I met some people, you know, from Arabic-speaking Africa. I didn't speak to them in French. I just spoke Arabic only.
Wow.
I met those who speak Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese, but I tried to meet them halfway and speak to them in Spanish, and they answered back in Portuguese. We made our way somehow, you know. But
you were able to communicate.
Yes, but there's more we can do.
Wow.
Let's sort out that Kiswahili.
Wow.
Let's sort out that Arabic. Let's sort out that Portuguese. Let's sort out that Afrikaans. Let's be able to go and at least have the lingua franca, another French term that we now use in English, lingua franca, and communicate with each other in a way that allows us to share what is deepest. And one thing that made this possible is the fact that His Excellency, you know, the President of France, spoke to everyone in the room in English as well as he was speaking in French to the colleagues who are on stage, the young people. There were translators in the room who were able to translate different languages to those who had the headphones and so on. But I'll be honest, I was most grateful for my French teachers growing up because I didn't need those headphones. And I could get the meaning behind the meaning within the meaning.
That's the reason why we were on the show today, because we wanted to start this conversation from a point of the person who understood, the person who speak French, the person who understood, not the person who was being translated for during New Africa France Summit. And that's the reason why we were thinking that we probably need to have Peter just do a series of interview with these guys. Everyone who has been in France coming back here, we want to hear, did they understand the magnitude of the weight placed upon their shoulder? That this is what we're saying we're going for now. As Africa, this is where we're going. And as France, this is what we want to do with you. What is our understanding of this? How does this begin to shape our perspective and attitude towards moving forward? Sometimes we're stuck. There was a moment, Peter, on that stage when a man, sort of like grabbed a microphone from the president and spoke, and watching the video, and I said, and he felt like he was going native, sort of, and everything remained calm. I mean, you were processing this not from the English translation to France or French translation to English, but directly from there. What was your assessment of that? Of course, we know that he was trying to test the waters to see, am I free or I am not free? But also sometimes, to outgrow the things that we've been through in life, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes we struggle to be in the future, but while trying to be who we are yesterday. It's very difficult to try to be who you want to be tomorrow, but at the same time in who you were yesterday. It's a very confusing statement right there, but we understood something. There was a calmness of that situation at that moment.
Yes.
What was your assessment, and what did it mean? That assessment really meant to every single black person who was sitting there, including those who are actually the French black people working inside France and their ministers. What signal did it send?
I've got to give a lot of kudos to the French education system, especially in how they train and prepare the diplomats and civil servants for service. I felt so much that everyone in the public sector within France who we interacted with had that decorum, had that calm, had that peace, had that ability. Even those who were in, even those who were officers of the law, making sure His Excellency was safe, even they had a level of diplomacy which was to write to a grandmother about.
There was no spanking off the stage.
No. And that's something that we can all learn. That's what I think we can learn from that.
Yeah.
It's something that we in Africa as young people can learn from.
Yeah.
It's something that we can teach kids as they're growing up and say, should we make sure kids learn more about the importance of diplomacy, decorum, and calmness, while not forgetting the importance of making our point heard.
Yeah.
But also the importance of listening to someone else's point, allowing them to speak, allowing them to let it all out, to be calm, and then share also what we have to share, but let it be an exchange of ideas, an exchange of experiences, and an opportunity to then let bygones be bygones without forgetting them. And that's really interesting from that point of view. But it's something that not only us can learn from, it's something that also the French private sector can learn from. My prayer is that the French private sector also gets to learn that level of diplomacy and understanding and conversation that the French public sector is incredible at. We, the private sector in Africa, can learn from that. The private sector in France, that's French, can learn from that. The French private sector in Africa can definitely learn from that too. That was something else which we all need to go, take some 3 hours, have some croissants, have a glass of Chateauneuf du Pape, have some, raclettes if you're up in the hills and it's cold, and watch the whole 3.5 hours. It's a learning experience for each of us, whichever way we're looking at it, whether we're a young person, a multinational, or a local Ugandan company. Definitely very, very crucial to look at it from all those points of view.
Wow. Peter, we're coming to the evening of our interview today, and I would just want to, first of all, say thank you very much, everybody who has been, watching the program and sharing it far and wide. We also do know that sometimes it's difficult because of the internet in Africa and particularly in Uganda, to the rest of the world, but we will continue to have the broadcast going on, and if you missed a part of it, it will definitely be running over and over for you to be able to catch and not miss any part, or even reconnect with the part that you've missed. And Peter, for me, is having this conversation with you gives a lot more enlightenment to what happened and the insight to what happened on the stage in France, in Montefiore, that day, or in those days that you guys were there. And you had a number of people who came with you. Did you have a chance to actually sit down as a delegation from Uganda to say, what can we learn from here? What can we do from here? Did you sort of like organize yourself to try and have a Ugandan caucus there to try and engage some of these ministers of businesses to do this from a private sector point of view, as people invite in France, or it was business as usual? We do the conference, we all depart to our rooms, and then see you home.
What was very interesting there was you had groups that came on different days.
Yes.
And within those, you had, a lot of support structures within us. We're really grateful to the Embassy of France in Uganda because they actually made sure we were okay all the way through. Even as we were making, connections to other parts of Africa and to France, I think our connections within Uganda have been strengthened thanks to this. We all came from different parts of Uganda, from different walks of life, from different industries, and different age groups as well. But I felt this interesting gel forming, from when we were trying to find out, where can I find, toothpaste, or where can I find this, the other. But in this journey, our bonds have become even stronger. And there's so much that we've all learned from, what to me and to others, I hope, was the pièce de résistance of His Excellency President Macron's speech. Another French term, which means the main course.
Yes, yes.
And it came down to what he said in French, and I'll try to translate it to English, but what he said
You can
was,
say it in French.
I'll say it in English. I'll say it in English. I'll say it in English because they can get it in French on the when they get the whole speech. But the challenge is, watch the speech, learn French, so that in 3 years' time you can listen to the whole speech in French. That's my challenge to you all, especially everyone who went on delegation. Anyone who works for a French company, just learn French, please, please. But the meat of the matter was as follows, or vegan meat if you don't eat meat, was France cannot look at its own future and really make it happen if it doesn't consider the Africa within it as well as the Africa without. That's the kind of message.
Repeat that again, Pete.
For France to really look at its own future,
Yes.
it has to consider the Africa within and the Africa without. And it's got to consider the history. Be they joyous histories or be they histories that could have been more joyous. That's my interpretation of what I heard as the meat of the matter, which was, we have all had a past. Let's be honest about that past. Let's each of us admit that past. But let's also acknowledge that and move forward. But remember that within us, there is a part of each other. What was big there to me was there is a part of Africa in France. And I don't mean an African as in terms of someone who looks African, but the Africanity. He used the word Africanity. There is an Africanity in France.
Yes.
And there is an Africanity in Africa. The same way, let's find that common core within all of us and build from there. And that's what I thought was amazing, because we all know that civilization became in Africa, life started from here. So when you talk about the Africanity within, you're talking about the core, the building blocks, the beginning. You're talking about, in my opinion, the baby we are each born as. Yeah. And when we go back to that core, we will find the similarities within ourselves to build that brighter future and that more glorious tomorrow. And to paraphrase His Excellency's words again, to make the planet better again.
Wow. Well, Peter, thank you very much, first of all, for this wonderful, deliberation on the show this morning. And of course, this afternoon or this evening, depending on which part of the world you're actually watching the program from. I want to just take a few moments to just read before you close the show. Peter, I want to start from a gentleman here all the way in France. Eddie Okila, thank you very much for the show. Merci beaucoup. He's written many other things in France, but he says, I love that gentleman speaking French. It was nice to see some Ugandans actually attend this and put on that. I've been looking forward, to see how this will come to pass. I live and work in France. And it was a great joy for me to see that the Africans were in France and were beginning to talk about certain things that were never usually talked about. My joy and hope is that the Africans will take this seriously, and it's not just a political speech or a political stage or a platform, but we are actually able to leave this going forward and capitalize on this going forward. I think that it is important that a president of our time begins to lead a way, a new way of the world going forward. Macron, kudos.
Kudos indeed.
Yes. I have another gentleman here. Says, Eddie Gula, thank you very much. I followed the conference from there. I just felt like the delegation from Uganda didn't take much advantage of that. I did not see them engaging business communities there during the conference to actually actualize that to serious business. So I like the topic you've brought. What does it mean for the creative industry? I think it's not just the creative industry, it should be for the production industry and put all of this. We have many companies from France working in Uganda. And can we have also these Ugandans build some multinational companies working in France? That way we'll begin to see the new Africa-France relationship as a reality. Wow, so people are actually taking this very serious.
Yes.
Peter, I want to read one from, a comment here from Kito Diallo says, thanks, Pete, for a great show. I have a question. France is known for exercising assimilation policy of colonialism, which seemingly was the best at benefiting Africans, where it saw many West Africans heading to France. Is this new French-Africa relationship another form of modern-day assimilation policy?
What I'd like to answer to my dear brother and say thank you so much, merci beaucoup, mon frère, is ultimately, when we look at something new, we look at what was old, we learn from it, and we build something better for the planet and for the future. So whatever challenges were there in the way things have been done before, or the way things may still be being done today in other areas, there is what we should learn from that. And he may have highlighted a few things as well, and I believe we shall learn from that. But what's interesting is, it's no longer a one-way street. I think we can all go online and Google and try to figure out how much French investment is there in Uganda. I speak for Uganda because I live here. I believe one will find that it is significant. One might find that it is so significant that it makes a difference. And one might also realize that there are enough Ugandan investments in Uganda that are sizable enough, and we had a few of them on our delegation. Massive entities that would hold their weight in terms of revenues anywhere in the world, be it in France or even in California. The point is, if a company from France can come to Uganda and help us overcome a few hiccups that we have in certain sectors where they have better experience, we also should consider, looking for opportunities to invest in places like France and other areas where we can build on our knowledge on this side to make a difference there. But more than that, take advantage of what he highlighted. Say, look, I'll go biblical maybe and go, out of the lion's carcass, honey was found. So if the history in West Africa could have been better, we can make it better now. We could say, could a Ugandan company work through France to make a difference in West Africa? Could it work the other way around? There are so many possibilities. Could a West African country, companies from West African country, go somewhere else and figure out how to better connect with a place like Uganda or Kenya or Tanzania? There's a lot we can learn from each other. There's a lot we must learn from each other, and there's a lot we need to learn from each other to actually move forward, and not just look at the past as sadness, but look at the past not as something to be forgotten, not as something to only apologize for to make people feel better, but as building blocks for the future. And no matter how bad what happened may have been, there is always a way to turn something around to make the most of that. Because if I'm to be very honest, I'll go, well, I talked earlier about going way back beyond 50 years and talking about the Roman Empire and other sort of things and so on. But even I look at just the last 50 to 100 years, I can now go to Côte d'Ivoire and do business because I speak French and because they speak French, right? Someone from Côte d'Ivoire can come to Uganda and do business if they speak English, because we speak English. That's something worth thinking about. It's not all bad. Of course, there may be a lot that could be made better, But that's what we have to start from. We say, look, it's not perfect, it's not incredible, but it doesn't mean it can't become incredible.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it can't become better. It doesn't mean we can't turn a new page and build a new future and write a new novel, as the head of state said. Write a new novel and make it even more joyous.
Wow. Thank you very much, Peter. I just want to read one more, comment from here as we close the show. And this is really a very interesting one. It's sort of like a comment. It says, Edio Killer, thank you very much. I hope that we can continue with this conversation for the next couple of days. What I'm really very much particularly interested in, I'm in the art industry, and you're talking about what does it mean for the creative industry in Uganda. Creative industry in Uganda already doesn't have very good policies to be able to help it foster, to go beyond borders. And that's something that we need to look into. But it doesn't mean that everything is doom and gloom. What we're really interested in mostly is to see that this thing that France is actually talking about is a new reality of how people begin to view Africa going forward. What I'm interested in going forward is to see how this conversation you've started on this platform with these people will end. But more especially, I want to see that this is not lip service, it's a reality that can be lived and can be practiced and can be tried and tested. This is the only time France has got to prove itself right from many other countries that have always talked about their heart being for Africa, but they do something different. We've had China talk about Russia and China saying that trade with Africa, but the trading has not been balanced. The Chinese trading in Africa is almost one-way street, is not a two-way street. Can France live its promise that a new Africa can be born? Great, words from Mr. Peter Nyeko, and a shout out to him. And I have a question to Mr. Peter Nyeko. He speaks French very well, seemingly. Can he tell us whether he was able to get a sense of truth from the French people? Because sometimes they can be deceptive. Peter, I think you are now becoming like the Messiah on the French things. I mean, you've had the question coming from my friend Peter right there. Peter is into creative arts industry, particularly is a painter.
Awesome.
Yes, he's a paint artist, and he said he's sold. I know he has sold many of his, art and craft to the French people. I mean, back in the days when I was still very active, I used to be the best MC for the creative arts in Uganda. At some point, we tried to lead, a campaign to raise money to build the National Museum for the creative industry in Uganda. And then that was led by Roberta from Germany, and of course Carol Bodner from Germany as well. And I think there was another gentleman from France whose name I forgot. But that was the discussion. So this relationship has been going on for some time. So Peter has of course benefited from some of this. But then again, everybody is saying, is this something that is going to be a reality? Perhaps we'll bring, people from the French embassy, the director, and maybe even at some point just, put the French ambassador onto the bench here to basically have this conversation. Is it true? Is it going to be a reality? I wouldn't mind actually, having a conversation with the president himself to say, this is what we want to understand this from the Ugandan perspective. Does this mean it's going to be a reality? But over to you, Peter, as we wind up.
Awesome.
And while you give us that, Peter, we also want to give us the last 3 things that summarizes what you have said today, that of what this summit actually really means for the creative industry. Please
Awesome.
Dive into it.
So great. I believe it's real. You can always look at something based not only about what it's spoken, but what has been done. We all know it is a fact that France has really supported the Ugandan creative industry, going way, way back.
Yeah.
Sadly for me as a Ugandan, much more than us as Ugandan business people have, even though we have the ability to. We are learning from France how to appreciate our own. Yeah. We're learning from France how to appreciate Ugandan art and so rest of that. So it's already been happening. The fact that a new page is being turned to make it even more interesting and involve us even more in that conversation, allows for reflection and gives a lot of hope. It's, you know, I speak the way I speak for many reasons, probably because I'm thinking in Luo and speaking in English, but at the end of the day, when I translated to France, you know, and what I was hearing, you know, when I was there, it's a fact that there is a way forward. The work really right now, at least coming on from the summit, is for each of us, you know, 300 plus who went from around Africa, strangely enough, a huge percentage of that from Uganda. That's another point to think about. If there are 300 and 22 from Uganda, Uganda must probably have some form of interest.
Significance, yeah.
Yes, and you know, it's and I mean, I do understand.
That's a conversation for another show altogether, you know.
You know, and that's why what does that mean? It means, in my opinion, each of those 22 had something to share with France and something to share with the other African delegates there, which is special about them and special about Uganda that the world needs. Yeah. Each of those 22 who went needs to ask themselves, why me? Why Uganda? What is it that I had to share out there? And what is it that I can still share to make the world a better place and give honor to Uganda? We shouldn't think about it in terms of saying, you know, what do we get from France or what will France give us? No, I believe it's the other way around. I believe it was what France could give us. Yeah. France would just fly in, right? But if you go there and have that conversation, there is something you have to say. There's something which you have to share. There's something which you can do. In some industries, more than one person was on the delegation. And I'd say reflect upon that. What does that mean for the opportunities for your businesses in France, in French-speaking West Africa? There is so much to build on from this. And we, from the business sector, have so much to learn from our colleagues in the arts because they've gone far, right? They've been able to take African art and make it global. Now, can we take African business and make it global the way African art has gone global? Can we take African education global the way they have taken African music global? Can we take African innovation global the way they have taken African sport global? You see what I mean right there? Yeah. That's what that conversation was happening in there. And it was as honest and as raw as it could possibly be. And I still applaud you know, our hosts for being gracious and allowing each of us to express what was not just at the tip of our tongue, but deep within our souls. Grâce à France. Merci beaucoup et merci à tous.
My name is Ronnie Abasa, and I'm here in the Fix to fix 4 things about Uganda. Number 1, talk like a Ugandan. This is Uganda. What does that really mean? If I'm in the parking lot and you are paid as a security guard to watch over my car, then I'm not going to have to pay you an extra to do your job. Do your job, let me do mine. Number 1. Number 2, why do Ugandans use the word million in plural? The digit before million is what makes it plural. So you don't say 2 million. 2 millions, 3 millions, 4 millions. It's million, okay? Million. 3, you have a nice fancy car. Mpenkoni, Mercedes Benz, whatever it is. And you are busy littering. Opening your window and throwing garbage. Sugarcane pills, maize cobs. Who sent you? Who bewitched you? Where do you come from? All right? And last but not least, these Ugandan proverbs. I hear, I'm expecting some money, I will pay you next week. If the Bible says, let your yea be a yea and your nay be a nay. Full stop. These stories of, I'm expecting some money, I'm expecting a call which didn't come through, that needs to change. My name is Ronnie Abasa, and I just fixed you.
va Kampala, Apex, Uganda. Don't nobody music, no simple and production. Jala, get tipsy off a NSC. Me see Pepsi, a lot of them I see. The movie and no apology. Many artists get an allergy. The wagulu, a lot of them me a pre-torture. Body music in a oveni. We gone so high, so a lot of them I see. We are so high. Body mumo toka fe tuli kubigere. Tulinze sente za feziwele. Mambo minji a lot of kelele.
And a bad mind still fight it every day.
Power, them a like that fire power. Them a like that fire power. Fire have a bone, fire have a bone and soon. Monday to Sunday na kulwange. Sula wonanze wensanze. Abachala bange bona mubampe. Nyenyeza mo wine pame. Me tell them that he bad mind, no time for you. No response if me think it no wreck for you. Don't need gira, but no see good debo. I'm a time for you, mash up the place you know. Bali mumo toka fe tuli kubigere. Tulinze sente za feziwele. Mambo minji a lot of kelele.
And a bad mind still fight it every day.
Power, them a like that fire power. Them a like that fire power. Fire have a bone, fire have a bone and soon. Bagamba, nzenta kanga malaika. Akapira nkazanya me striker. Tuvayo movie there like flighter. Never to lava, they say we out of the sight. But to wala na beka we art and style. Send the movie before the boy there, I know.
DJ me know your bad there, I know.
Girl them off the wine pan time. Bali mumo toka fe tuli kubigere. Tulinze sente za feziwele. Mambo minji a lot of kelele.
And a bad mind still fight it every day.
Power, them a like that fire power. Them a like that fire power. Fire have a bone, fire have a bone and soon. Studio with Tony, now we not a killer. Everybody fall in when they see the killer. Everybody fall in, feel lyrical, oh me gala. Love me when me performing. You know me pull up the bad man style, yeah, hear me. Too much money to me think you can't help me. Now me self and the water like fairy. Some say me cool but me say I'd vary. Bali mumo toka fe tuli kubigere. Tulinze sente za feziwele. Mambo minji a lot of kelele.
And a bad mind still fight it every day.
Power, them a like that fire power. Them a like that fire power. Fire have a bone, fire have a bone and soon. Step on top like a pulpit. Flow got brain inside it. So busy but them can't hide it. No man to me think can't hide it. Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana. Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana. Big woman thing. Girl, me love how you talk so. Girl, when you talk, me can't tell you shut up. Simplify when you talk, baby. When you talk, I'm just a blackout. Jagalanzi Jeff, your body boat. No visa, baby, got no passport. No money, boo, no visa too. But baby, me give you the comfort. Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana. Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana.
Big woman thing. baby killer, bite me, Dracula. Seen you from afar with my killer binocular. Me speak vernacular, Nkwagala you a killer. Me know say so many men I want you a kubo killer.
She tell me she coulda love me, but she got HIV. How could I see that when she got no ID, no ID? Maria, Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana. Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana. Teba mukwana. Mariana, ma Mariana, ono muwala teba mukwana.
farmers around us here have no access to electricity, no access to clean cooking fuel, and no access to milling. So to mill their rice and groundnuts and maize, they have to drive miles away to grow. They have to pay for transport, they have to pay for storage and accommodation.
Mandulis is an electricity company that uniquely also provides agricultural value addition. Farmers bring us their crops and we turn this into higher value products. This alone doubles their income. We're trying to create a way of generating electricity that delivers value to the local communities in which we operate.
Now, we've come here so that we use the waste from all the farming around us to produce electricity through biomass gasification at each of these sites.
At the same time, that focus on biomass means we can not only generate electricity, but we end up with a byproduct, that biochar, which can be used to produce cooking fuel. Doing that means that we save nearly 1 million trees per annum. Technology is a thread that ties everything together. We combine the blockchain technology, AI, and Internet of Things to make sure that we can address critical bottlenecks that allows us to engage thousands of farmers. And the cost of settlement of electricity transactions go down significantly.
In a sense, energy is the center of entrepreneurship in the regions, and by providing these underserved areas with access to electricity, we're hoping that it won't just turn on a light, it'll turn on a movement towards improving people's lives in those regions.
They always say that the greatest asset you have in every organization is human beings. So leadership starts with you and how you interact with the people around you, even in your home. The truth is, if you're not able to lead your home very well, you can't lead anything else.
Wow.
So leadership starts with you. And if you set that example, others will follow you.
I want to know, what is it like to be the president and the CEO of Baywood Continental, Baywood Group, and all these things going on? How do you manage?
You got to stay focused, and you have to have your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Eye on the ball, always. What's that ball to succeed? Make it success, not minding the challenges.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Chris Baywood Ibe. Why the youth?
They're the future. I don't care, but they're the future. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. But you know what? That step does not guarantee you're going to reach to that destination.
Yeah.
Continuous working will ensure you get to that stage. So, one of the things that I pride myself for is that you don't need to have billions to be a philanthropist. Right? Yeah. I did it, and I found the secret to success. It's giving.
I have the pleasure to present to you
KCCA has taken a number of steps to address this sanitation challenge, which include, but not limited to the following: the setup,
say, the future has a name, and its name is hope. A tiny flicker of light that feeds on hope is enough to shatter any shield of darkness. At Mandulus, we really believe.
So as we come to the end of the show, what do you have for barristers out there? Because like we said earlier, you won't be a barrister at 70. Okay, what can these barristers do to make themselves more relevant in the coffee chain and the coffee process, and also more relevant for their lives going ahead?
Okay. I usually meet barristers and I'll tell them you're going to be active for 10 years. Yes. You know, if you stretch it, 20 years. But you can, graduate yourself first. You've learned barrister, basic barrister, add more skills, but also advance to maybe quality control. Because if you do R or Q grading, then you can get a job in a private farm or a coffee exporting or a coffee processing farm. That's 1+. Another thing, if you're a barista who has a background in agriculture, you can work backwards, you know, switching back to your profession.
Yeah.
It's going to be good if you applied for a job, let's say quality control, and you're a barista, you have studied R or Q, and you also know some coffee agronomy. Yeah. Definitely they will take you.
Yeah.
Also, you're going to be better than someone who has studied quality control but is not a barista, because you know every employee wants a bigger package of you at the same price. So the thing is, if you're a barista, you're 40 years, you've overstretched maybe 40, 45, just learn Q or R. UCD has free, you know, these are free courses. I'm not speaking for UCD, but they are free. R and Q grading, they are free. You stand a chance to get a job in the coffee industry, in growing or processing farm. But another thing, we have some people we are with who have a background in agriculture or biotechnology.
It is time for the coffee break. A very good morning wherever you're watching us from. How are you doing? How's been your week? Monday to Friday is always a stressing time. You know, like you wake up on a Monday and you're like, oh God, I have a whole week waiting for me. But on a Saturday like this and a morning like this at an hour of 11 a.m., we always got you covered. We give you a break and talk about coffee. Get to know things that you might have done during the week, and your weekend is covered. So my name is Amon Mukisa and welcome to the Coffee Break show. This is House of Talent Television and we're streaming live on our YouTube channel. That's at House of Talent Uganda, but also catch the show on Facebook as House of Talent Television Uganda. But on Twitter, you know, you can go over there and follow our Twitter handle. That's at HTV1 Uganda. We shall be streaming live every show from our studios right here in Bukoto. And yeah, we get to talk about coffee. We have a variety of shows, but today it's time for coffee. Welcome once again on the show. Today I have a guest. We're going to be talking about various things. We're going to be talking about a little bit of, like, you know, how the coffee houses are going to open up. The economy is fully opening up literally like next week. It's going to fully open up, and now we want to look at it in that aspect of, like, how are the coffee houses ready and how are they going to cope up with extended hours of working, but also on the side of the baristas, are they ready to tackle or take on this mantle of working for more extensive hours? Because most of the baristas, you never know, during this time of work, they got more things to do because they used to work less hours. But that's the conversation we shall be having today with my guest today. But before we get into all that, welcome my guest today on the show.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, man.
Thank
Who are we having here today?
Yeah, I'm called Apaga Samuel, and I'm Ugandan by nationality, a barista by profession, and yeah.
Yeah, I like the confidence, man. That's 2022, eh? That's the way to go, eh? Yeah. It's Samuel.
Yes, sir.
Samuel, how have you been?
I've been good.
How are you finding the new year?
The new year hasn't been that bad, just because I resigned from my former workplace to move on with something new as I prepare for something better.
You know, always when people resign from their former workplaces, they always have something big coming. Do you have something big that's coming?
Yeah, there's something big I'm expecting.
You know, whenever baristas resign, me, I always think about, like, you know, pushing out. Oh, that's not something big you're talking about, eh? Sam,
yeah.
So let's talk about coffee, because this is the coffee break.
Yes, sir.
How do you get into the coffee industry, and how did you get to know about coffee?
Actually, I got to know about coffee through a brother. I was in Form 6, then we're getting to a vacation. Then a brother talked to me, was like, Sam, you're soon having a vacation and it's a bit long. 8 months when you're home. Yeah. Then he was like, maybe you can come, I connect you to someone. You get to know about coffee because, you know, you take it as a profession, then there's some good money, you'll earn some good money.
So the vacation, you were talking about like the senior 4 vacation,
No,
senior 6 vacation?
Senior 6 vacation.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I got home, my parent contributed some money. Then I joined barista school. Madam Nyakaisike was the teacher. Yes, Nyakaisike and Nyapende Sarifai.
Which school was that?
Barista House.
Barista House.
Yeah.
I like the names, Barista House. Like literally it's only for baristas, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So when I joined, I studied for 1.5 months. Then from there, she got me a job at the Coffee Cafe, Chiwatule. Then I started working as a head barista.
Wow.
Yeah.
1.5 months, you've
1.5.
studied, and now you're working as a head barista in a certain place.
Yeah.
Ah, man, that was quite something, because people do work for quite a while before they become head baristas. You know, for someone to trust you with their shop, someone to trust you with their coffee and everything to lead it. It seems like you're really, really good doing your training in 1.5 months.
Yeah, actually they equipped me with coffee knowledge, you know, both theory and practical. And she sent me to this lady, and this lady trusted me and gave me the opportunity to run the barista section.
During your school in that 1.5 months, like what were the things you talked about being specific? Because I know coffee being as a wide thing. It's a wide concept to cover when you're talking about coffee. So when you tell me like you only took 1.5 months to study coffee or get to know it, it beats my mind. Like, how did you like segment all those things in only 1.5 months? What did you do?
Actually, it was more of practical. It was all about knowing how to operate an espresso machine. Then also the other manual brewing part, the different manual brewing equipments. Yeah, it was about the coffee machine and the different manual brewing equipment and how to handle clients. Yeah.
Yeah, the service part of it.
The service part of it.
Okay, let's go back to when you're young. Did you grow around like the coffee area, coffee environment for you to get to know coffee?
Actually, during my young days, I didn't know much about coffee. The coffee I knew was picking the red cherries from the coffee plant, go and sell a kg at 300 shillings.
But did you know by then that they are called red cherries?
No. Actually, I didn't know that.
What would you just mwani?
Mwani, yeah,
Yoka,
that is what
yoka.
we used to. So grandma could send us to go and pick the red cherries. We go and sell. They could sell. We could sell each kg at 300 shillings.
300.
Yeah.
Which year was that, if you can remember?
That was 2012. Yeah, 2012, 2009, 2010. Yeah.
Where was that?
That was Uganda.
Uganda. Oh, you're from Uganda, eh?
Yeah.
You don't even grow coffee, eh?
My mom is Sogas,
Yeah.
is from Uganda. Then my dad is from West Nile.
You know, Iganga, Mbale, Bududa, okay, Karamoja is a bit far, but they also grow a bit of coffee.
Yeah.
But that area, they grow a lot of coffee.
Yeah, you're
So, like, your mother was growing coffee, right?
Yeah, my grandma.
Your grandma.
Yeah, my grandma.
Like, how were the growing methods they used, like, to grow coffee, if you can remember?
If I'm to remember or to recall, actually for us we went when it's already grown.
It's already up.
It's already up. So we're there to pick the cherries, go sell. We never went through the nursery bed and all that.
What's one thing that you bought and you can still say, yes, I sold this coffee and I bought this?
Actually, I remember when we picked the red cherries, we used to chew the very ripe coffees, yeah, and we could get this sweet taste from it. Then grandma was like, "You people, you're spoiling my coffee. Yet we need to go and sell and get some money for sugar. You need to pick more coffees. We go sell, get some money for sugar, maybe breakfast." Yeah.
Well, the reason why I ask you that question is because during Christmas, my young brother, he's aged now 10 years. So my dad told him, if you want to buy something for yourself on Christmas, go and harvest the coffee, because we had some coffee plantations in our banana plantation somewhere.
Yeah.
They're not much.
Yeah.
Just, you know how like you can grow coffee in a banana plantation and so that coffee tree had beared a lot of coffee cherries. So my dad told this guy, you go and harvest that coffee, you sell it, and you buy whatever you want. I'm not going to give you any money. That guy went and harvested coffee, and what he did, I'm told he got 10 kgs and he sold it. He bought a pair of trousers and a t-shirt. But I tell you that day, he never removed those clothes. So that's why I was like, what is that one thing that you bought with the coffee you sold?
For us, we used to sell and, give the money to the grandma.
Oh!
Yeah, that's what we used to do. We didn't know much about money, so we could go sell. Then this guy could get the money and bring to the grandma. So we were helping the guy. He wasn't giving us this money. We could give the money to the grandma.
Okay. Yeah. Before you went to Barista House as a coffee school, which schools did you go to? And in these schools, did they like talk about coffee?
Before
you went to Barista House as a coffee training school, Which schools did you attend?
It was a Chitante Hill.
Oh, you're the rich guys, huh?
No. It was a Chitante Hill from Form 1 to Form 4. Then Form 5 and Form 6, I went to Emirates. Those ends of Entebbe. Yeah.
The schools you've talked about, they're all in Central, and you told me your grandma was in Uganda. How do you get to Central?
Actually, we were born here.
Oh, you're born here?
Yeah, we were born here. So during our holidays, we're taken to the village, to go stay with
your grandma, to get to know your grandma very well.
And the people there.
Yeah. And in your high school, you never had like coffee clubs and everything, because in the previous show with Michael, correct? If you haven't watched that show, please go to our YouTube channel, that's our Soft Talent Uganda, and watch that show. It was a very, very nice show. Michael talked to us about how he got to know coffee, how he got to know our introduction into the coffee industry. And he was like, there were these coffee clubs in school, in universities, and that's how he got to know coffee. Were there coffee clubs in your school?
For us, we were very, very unfortunate. We never had any coffee clubs. Yeah.
Do you think it's something that maybe schools can consider?
Yeah, very, very much. Because it is helping out youth to a greater extent. You get youth are gaining much from coffee, and coffee is on a wide market. You get. When you get to know coffee, you won't fail to get a job or to get any connection anywhere, because in this world of coffee, people connect friends. When you're this good kind of person, you won't fail to be connected somewhere. Me, I've been connected by several friends. I've also connected several people. You get. So there is love. There is this selfish spirit in this coffee world.
Okay. There is love, there is connection in the coffee sector, and there is love, there is connection on the coffee break. And I hope you've gotten to know who we are having on the show today. That is Sam. I was still having him on the show, so don't touch your day. We're coming back right after this break.
They always say that the greatest asset you have in every organization is human beings. So leadership starts with you and how you interact with the people around you, even in your home. The truth is, if you're not able to lead your home very well, you can't lead anything else.
Wow.
So leadership starts with you. And if you set that example, others will follow you.
I want to know, what is it like to be the president and the CEO of Baywood Continental, Baywood Group, and all these things going on? How do you manage?
You got to stay focused, and you have to have your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Eye on the ball, always. So what's that ball? To succeed. Make a success, not minding the challenges.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Chris Baywood Ibe. Why the youth?
They're the future. I don't care, but they're the future. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. But you know what? That step does not guarantee you are going to reach to that destination.
Yeah.
Continuous walking will ensure you get to that stage. So one of the things that I pride myself for is that you don't need to have billions to be a philanthropist, right? Yeah. I did it, and I found the secret to success. It's giving.
So I used to love the way our barista used to present his cups.
Yeah.
For example, one day he presented some nice coffee. It was a cappuccino, very nice, presented. And I asked him, how do you make this? He said, you go to a school and study.
Yeah.
So I used to love the passion he had. So I said one day I should learn this. So I kept on serving his orders. But I found out that most of the orders were according to the way he was feeling. You know, baristas present their cups according to the way they are feeling, according to the mood. In case he left home when he's sad, he's not happy, you will see the results in the cup. But when you see something beautiful, just know he's so happy.
Yeah.
So the passion he had and the love he used to put in the cup really encouraged me to join the school. Not until I got to learn about Isaac at the Pro Plus.
Yeah.
Then I came with some of my friends, so we are now doing the course.
You're still watching House of Talent Television, and welcome back from that short commercial break. We're still having Sam being able to tell us what were his experience while joining the coffee industry. Sam, yes. What were your childhood memories when joining coffee?
Actually, I didn't know about coffee. When I got done with my Form 6, I had a very different dream. I wanted to be a preacher. I wanted to preach the gospel.
Pastor.
Yeah, pastor.
Apostle.
And farming, farming as I preach the gospel of Christ. So when my brother introduced me to Barista House, of course, at first I didn't have this love and passion for coffee. My mind was all about getting the money, you know, as a youth, you know, buying good stuff, some good phone, clothes, you know. So in the process, I actually fall in love with coffee. I loved coffee. I learned a lot, and I preached coffee. Okay, to different people.
You preached coffee.
I preached coffee.
Okay.
And people got to know coffee, because me, as I was at the station, they could give me a steward to hold me, but I could teach them. Yeah, I could teach them, and when I was resigning, I could leave them to head.
Can we say that your memories of being, or your dream of being a pastor, when you got into coffee, you forgot totally about being a pastor or becoming a pastor?
No, I didn't actually forget about, you know, I still have this dream in me, but coffee became part of me. It's like putting on a cloth in life that you'll never get rid of. So coffee became part of me. Of course, I'm still chasing my dream, but coffee is already part of me. Yeah.
How's the dream coming?
The dream will come. It is still on the way.
It's still on the way.
It is still on the way. And I believe I will fulfill it. Yeah. But so, now coffee is part.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
So what was like the real motive of joining coffee? Was it preaching the coffee, you know, here on the show we call it the coffee gospel, or it was just because of getting money?
Actually, it was, at first it was because just of getting money. I wanted to get money and do some other stuff, start up a small business and leave coffee. But as I went on doing baristering, you know, doing coffee, studying more about coffee, I got in love with coffee. So I do preach coffee. I hold people, you know, reach barista brew plus, because these days I no longer sent to barista house. Brew plus is much better, and it is helping out, you know, guys out there. So I send my friends there for more knowledge, and they are happy. They are working. You get the people I trained. You know, at the station you can't fully train someone. You train this person, and you know, forward this person to brew plus for more training.
How long have you been a barista, Sam?
I've now been a barista for 4.5 years.
Because training, 1.5 months, if I remember what you talked about in the first segment of the show, and now you're talking about training other students. How do you do all this as one person?
Actually, in my life, I've been longing so much to hold. I want to hold. I remember one day I was training a steward at a sleek place. It's a restaurant and a bar, and one of the workmates came and said, "Sam, aren't you afraid that you're training this guy? They are giving him less money than the one you're earning. Aren't you afraid that you'll be fired and this guy will be replaced?" You know, I was like, I don't fear to be fired. Actually, I've never been fired. This is what I've been doing since I started, and I have to keep on doing it. You get? There are people out there, they are suffering, and coffee is here. If you get to know coffee, you're good to go. Be it abroad, you know, coffee is a very high demand. When you get to know coffee, employment opportunities are higher compared to other short courses. Yeah.
Talking about coffee being here, today on the show, we said we're going to be dissecting the topic of how these coffee houses and baristas are going to cope up with full opening of the economy. And that's something you need to share with us on our social media platforms. That's at HTV1 Uganda, on Twitter, and on Facebook, that's at House of Talent Uganda. We're streaming live on Facebook, so go deep down there and put your comment and tell us how, if you're a barista, how are you going to cope up with extended hours of work? And if you're CEO or coffee house owner, tell us, like, how are you prepared with these hours of work? Sam,
yes, please.
Baristas who are working in these coffee shops have been down like for 2 years. Some have been laid off, some have been working for some limited time. How are these baristas going to cope up with the added time that is going to come with a full opening of the economy?
To the other hand, it is going to be hard, most especially for the baristas in these small cafes, because these people, trust me, I've been in some of these cafes, they are not willing to give out shifts, and they overwork junior baristas to an extent of, you know, making them lose this morale, this coffee morale. Because some time back I had a friend, he was employed in, he was actually my neighbor. He was at Zarif, I was at the coffee cafe. And this guy could work from morning to midnight, or to, you get, to midnight or to 2, you get, and you have to come back in the morning and prepare the mission plus and all that. So the guy actually, after leaving the place, he was like, I will never work again in Uganda.
The experience made him hate working in Uganda.
That experience made him hate Ugandans, you get.
Isn't that what we call exploitation of workers?
That is what most cafes, most especially these small cafes are doing. And they are making these young gentlemen hate our industry. No, someone can't work from morning to closure, yet you're expecting him to come very early in the morning the other day. You get. And you'll find out that most of the baristas these days who join Brew Plus come to study to move abroad because of such incidences. And I don't blame them. Me, myself, it has ever happened to me. I used to work like from morning to midnight at times, you get. And the boss, when you come back a bit late the next day, the boss, you know, becomes so rude, as if you have committed a very big crime, you get. So this will affect people.
Yeah.
And most, especially these people who are in these small cafes that are struggling to catch up, yet they are not willing to provide what is needed for a cafe to catch up, you get.
How did you deal with that whole experience of like working for long hours and the boss would be bitter when you come in a little bit late?
It was actually a very hard experience. I worked for like 6 months. Then this time round, I did not even write a resignation letter.
Just
left. Then they called, you come back and we talk, come back and, you know, we sort it out, we get you a helper. You were good. You know me, I'm a very patient guy with bosses, but when it's too much, I leave. And I've done this to 3 different places, 3 different restaurants. I won't mention them.
Yeah. You've set up different places, different restaurants, different coffee shops.
Yeah.
If you would be in the shoes of these CEOs, these coffee house owners, how would you prepare for such an opening of the economy? Like, how would you prepare for this opening of the economy? Like, you've been working from 7 maybe to around 5 or 6, but now you're going to work from 7 up to around maybe midnight or 10 p.m.
I'll have to look for, most especially these people in production, the people in the barista section and the kitchen. I'll look forward to giving them shifts, because these guys do work and they are not like people in service who always work and get some tips. They don't get tips. So I would employ more people to come and help out to ease work, because since the government is opening, we are going to expect more customers. Back then, clients used to worry because of the curfew. You go, you sit, then someone comes in, say, we are closing because of the curfew. But this time round, people will come and sit comfortably. And we are expecting big numbers of clients, not like those days where people used to fear the old people could not move out because, you know, old guys were dying more than the young people because of the virus. So we didn't see much of these old aged people in our restaurants. They were in that fear. Instead, we could deliver to them. They could give a call, you deliver, you give us curry, Yeah. So this time round we are expecting big numbers of people, but to prepare for them we need to work on the production side in order to provide and not to overwork people. Yeah.
Okay, don't leave this conversation for us, guys. We're having a conversation about the full opening of the economy and the fact that in the coffee industry, various people are opening up like to more working hours. So get to our Twitter platform, our Twitter handle, tweet us and let us know how would you deal with the full opening of the economy in whatever business you're in. Are you in a restaurant? Are you in a shop? You would be watching the show because it's nice for you, but you don't work in a coffee business. Maybe you have something like a wholesale business selling merchandise. How are you prepared to work for these long hours, and how have you prepared for your workers? Let's talk about an issue of human resource. You talked about employers employing more employees, right?
Yes.
But this guy will come out and tell you, hey, look, yes, I want to employ different people or more people, but hey, I don't have money. Like I've been working from 7 to maybe 5, but clients have been stopping to come in at around maybe 2 p.m. Where am I going to get this money that's going to pay more employees that you want me to employ? How do you advise such a person?
Okay, most of the people that have come up with most of the cafes around town, they always, when you reach these bosses, they're like, want to be like Cafe Javas, want to do as Javas does. Not knowing that at Javas, people work in shifts. And actually, I worked for a certain boss. He employed me as a senior barista and at the same time as a supervisor to train the team. Then he was giving me some good money. I was like, yes, you're giving me good money, but are you going to get someone else to hold me out? Because I'm a barista, yes, I have a steward, but at the same time, I'm a supervisor. This is overloading me. You get? I'll need an assistant. He was like, no. Keep on pushing. Then with time,
I shall get someone.
I shall get someone to help you out. It became a song. You get? So the advice I'll give the CEOs about what is going, the country is opening, get some junior baristas. They are not so expensive since they have just joined the industry. Give them good money, not very good, but good money. Give them some allowances. Trust me, these people will work. As long as he's not working for long hours, this guy will work.
Okay, this guy will work, but also the point of quality. You know, we've been used to producing a certain quantity of a certain quality in terms of maybe like coffee. You've been producing maybe 50. Okay, 50 for, let me just consider the smaller shops. We've been using like maybe 10 kgs of coffee a week. That's like maybe 1.5 kilos of coffee every day. And now you're going to open up, you're going to have higher demand for coffee. How would you advise this person who wants to bring in much coffee to maintain the quality of coffee that's bringing in?
Bringing in more coffee.
Like for example, maybe I've been bringing in 10 kgs of coffee every week, but now due to the fact that we're opening up, I'm going to bring in maybe like 20 kgs of coffee. So, but I want to maintain this quality of coffee and also bring in much coffee in my coffee shop. How am I going to do that?
You want to maintain the quality of the coffee.
Yes.
You know, maintaining quality starts with people you employ. If these people are well equipped with coffee knowledge, don't worry much about quality.
Really? Because I might be well with the coffee knowledge, but my friend, the coffee you're bringing to me as a barista, it's terrible. How am I going to?
Of course, as a barista, you have to tell. You should be in position to tell whether the coffee you're being provided is good or bad. You get this. The boss should not be the one to tell. you know, this is your section, you're heading this section, so you should be in position to know which coffee is good and which coffee is bad. You know, this takes us back to where people teach baristas from. People have come up with different baristas lab and schools, and there are people who are actually giving them half information and knowledge, skills about becoming a real barista. You get me myself. I was affected sometimes. When I left barista house, I didn't know about, how to calibrate a grinder. I came to know a grinder when I'm in the field. I knew how to steam the other side and all that, but I didn't know more about the grinder. So I got to know the grinder in the field. So at times you leave a school, knowing that you're good to go, reaching there, someone brings in coffee, and you just grind and serve. You can't tell that this is good coffee or bad coffee. Then why are you heading a department?
Why are you heading a department? Because I'm paying you to head a department.
The boss trusts somebody to head a department, knowing that this person is having the knowledge, enough knowledge and skill to push the department forward. But now when you serve bad coffee, then...
Do you really think that CEOs or owners of different companies, especially in the coffee industry, should adopt this method of like taking back their workers in whatever department they're in, because they're serving coffee more than service, whether the cleaner, because this cleaner is helping me like clean the place where I'm taking coffee from. Do you think they should adopt that method of like taking back the students, taking back these people for more training, refreshing training?
Yeah, actually, it's the advice I will give, because we've ever done it. I was at Chili's and we were doing it. So is getting experienced people. Maybe you can go to Brew Plus, talk to the CEOs to get you someone experienced. Take this person to your restaurant and train these people. That is actually what I would advise the CEOs to do.
Okay.
You get someone experienced, give him some money. It's not much money. You get? Take him to your restaurant, let him train these people.
Okay, if you're a CEO and you're glued on this show, which is the Coffee Break Show on House of Talent TV, let us know, how do you keep your employees up to date in everything they do? Like, the point you employ them is the same standard they're doing to the level that they are on in doing that specific time. Well, let us know how you do it. This is the Coffee Break Show, and my name is Amon Mukisa. We're going to go into a short commercial break, and up next is our brewing session that we shall be having with my colleague right here. Don't you go away.
Make some noise, Kampala! You know, this is the Morisco experience where anything happens.
Lord, I have something to say. I keep on searching for meaning in everything I'm doing. They say you listen to everything we say. That's why I'm calling and asking for you to lead the way. Yeah, I'll keep on walking, keep on walking. Please, Lord, lead the way. Let the children sing now, yeah. Keep on walking, please lead the way. Yeah, I'll follow. And I'll follow. And I will follow. I'll follow. Lord, sometimes I get afraid. Then I remember what the scripture said. They say you listen to everything we say. And that's why, Lord, and now I'm calling and asking for you to lead the way. Yeah. So I'll keep on walking, Lord, lead the way. Yeah, I keep on walking, Lord, lead the way. Yeah, and I'll follow. I'll follow. I will follow. I will follow. Yesu, mkwano wange. Yesu, tata wange. Yesu, subi yange. Kamugoberere, whoa. Keep on walking, Lord, lead the way. Keep on walking, please, Lord, lead the way, yeah. And you know that I will follow, yeah. Oh, I will follow. I will follow you, Lord, yeah. I will follow. And I'll keep on walking, Let the children sing, yeah. Keep on walking. I will follow. I will follow you, Lord, yeah. I will follow you, Lord, yeah. Oh, yeah. Kampala means follow you. And I will follow you, oh Lord. I will follow.
How you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to one of the best dance groups that we know in Kampala. Make some noise for Taboo Flow, VC and Rose.
say they are the way, they are the way, they are the way. They say they are the way, they give and they can take away, but I say I rule my destiny, and only Most High can take away. But they say I'll do as I say, if I don't do then they'll take away. So the paid, I'm paid, I'm paid, I'm paid, the paid so the whole world could hear my voice. But I prayed, I'm prayed, I'm prayed, I'm prayed, I prayed so the whole world could hear my voice. Now don't play with me, I'll be going to another. Like a 7-Eleven in his own town, I will move to another. Maybe then you will love me, maybe then you'll discover, yeah, I would die for you. So many times I've been pushed around, I stuck around, maintained my ground, just to show you I'm true to you. But now it's up to you, what you gonna do? I'm leaving on a train, on an emotional journey to wipe you out of my brain again. Won't you gain composure, or you might lose the only man who ever loved ya? See, I'm the unsung hero, I'm the shadow that follows you every place you go. I'm the mini mark a second in a second, because of a minute you ignore that I leave. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. I hope it's worth my time. With me, I'll be going to another. Like a 7-Eleven in his own town, I will move to another, yeah. Maybe then you will love me, maybe then you'll discover, yeah, I will die for you. I will die for you. Say, I will die for you. But I will die for you. I will die for you. I will die for you. For you. I will die 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 for you. omuwala eyebusabala prosikovi omulungi webusabala yalina akamwenyu akalinga enjuba nga mutayiza nga tegejjuba waliwo ekintu ekyansumbuwa ekyo ekintu ekyangoba ebusabala yalina muzeeye yali yajjula obukambwe nga buli bwandaba ng'awagala ekyambe kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala muzeeyi yali mulodi webusabala okuva ebuvanjuba paka ebugwanjuba ng'abanoonya abasajja ba local defense mikwano gya muzeeyi wa sikovia guli omukwano gwali gujja kunzisa nga njiribajiriba ne prosikovia obula muzeeyi yali yajjula obukambwe nga buli bwandaba ng'awagala ekyambe kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala ekyangoba eyebusabala batuula ku ntebe nze ne bampa omukeeka ekyangoba eyebusabala nze omwana w'omuntu ne bampita enswera ekyangoba eyebusabala prosikovi ekimuli kyebusabala obula muzeeyi yali yajjula obukambwe nga buli bwandaba ng'awagala ekyambe kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala kyekyangoba eyebusabala ekyangoba eyebusabala batuula ku ntebe nze ne bampa omukeeka ekyangoba eyebusabala nze omwana w'omuntu ne bampita enswera ekyangoba eyebusabala prosikovi ekimuli prosikovi oyo prosikovi ekimuli kyebusabala baligamba nti nayimbira abato nayimbira emitima egyali mu kabi gitebenkere abantu balamu baagalane baligamba nti nafubira ku gita abalala balwana senga ndi ku gita njagala bayige ewane nti twaliyo buli kyenkola kikolera balijja Mungu anyamba abaana nneme kubaswaza njagala bayige bewane nti twaliyo
twakulira mu mulembe gwa kirya twakulira mu mulembe gwa kirya twakulira mu mulembe gwa kirya twakulira mu mulembe gwa kirya.
Children will rise taller than the mountains. I'd love to be a part of their foundation. I'd love to hear them say, we were there, we were there. We were there, we were there. Children will rise taller than the mountains. I'd love to be a part of their foundation. I'd love to hear them say, we were there, we were there. Every song I sing so they can be strong. My every heartbeat so they can love forever long. I love to hear them say, we were there. kw'ensozi empya baliwulira oluyimba luno ku rediyo balijjukira ennyimba ezatuweweeza. I would love this song to be played on the radio for many years to come. Whatever it would be called then, we'll remember when we used music as therapy. And I will have sung the song way back then. Yeah, way back then. Way back then, yeah, yeah. Way back then. Abana bakule, abana bayige, eggwanga likule. I wanna inspire the world, yeah. I wanna move the world, yeah. I wanna move the world, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Mumulembe wakirya, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
How you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to one of the best dance groups that we know in Kampala. Make some noise for Taboo Flow, VC and Rose.
They say they are the way, they are the way, they are the way. They say they are the way, they give and they can take away, but I say I rule my destiny, and only Most High can take away. But they say I'll do as I say, if I don't do then they'll take away. So the paid, I'm paid, I'm paid, I'm paid. The paid so the whole world could hear my voice. But I prayed, I'm prayed, I'm prayed, I'm prayed. I prayed so the whole world could hear my voice. Now, don't play with me, I'll be gone to another. Like a 7-Eleven in his own town, I will move to another. Maybe then you will love me, maybe then you'll discover, yeah, I would die for you. So many times I've been pushed around, I stuck around, maintained my ground, just to show you I'm true to you. But now it's up to you, what you gonna do? I'm leaving on a train, on an emotional journey to wipe you out of my brain. Again, won't you gain composure, or you might lose the only man who ever loved ya. See, I'm the unsung hero, I'm the shadow that follows you every place you go. I'm the mini microsecond in a second, because of a minute you ignore that I live. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. I hope it's worth my time. Don't play with me, I'll be going to another. Like a 7-Eleven in his own town, I will move to another, yeah. Maybe then you will love me, maybe then you'll discover, yeah, I will die for you. I will die for you. Say, I will die for you. 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 I will die for you.
They always say that the greatest asset you have in every organization is human beings. So leadership starts with you and how you interact with the people around you, you know, even in your home. The truth is, if you're not able to lead your home very well, you can't lead anything else.
Wow.
So leadership starts with you. And if you set that example, others will follow you.
I want to know, what is it like to be the president and the CEO of Baywood Continental, Baywood Group, and all these things going on? How do you manage?
You got to stay focused, and you have to have your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Eye on the ball, always. So what's that ball to succeed? Make it success, not minding the challenges.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Chris Baywood Ibe. Why the youth?
They're the future. I don't care, but they're the future. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. But you know what? That step does not guarantee you're going to reach to that destination.
Yeah.
Continuous walking will ensure you get to that stage. So one of the things that I pride myself for is that you don't need to have billions to be a philanthropist, right? Yeah. I did it, and I found the secret to success. It's giving.
people at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
Pleasure to present to you
KCCA has taken a number of steps to address this sanitation challenge, which include, but not limited to the following: the setup,
Welcome to Slam Dunk Basketball Talk.
A wise man once said, "The future has a name, and its name is hope. A tiny flicker of light that feeds on hope is enough to shatter any shield of darkness." At Mandulus, we really believe.
They always say that the greatest asset you have in every organization is human beings. So leadership starts with you and how you interact with the people around you, even in your home. The truth is, if you're not able to lead your home very well, you can't lead anything else.
Wow.
So leadership starts with you. And if you set that example, others will follow you.
I want to know, what is it like to be the president and the CEO of Baywood Continental, Baywood Group, and all these things going on? How do you manage?
You got to stay focused, and you have to have your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Eye on the ball, always. Watch that ball to succeed. Make it success, not minding the challenges.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Chris Baywood Ibe. Why the youth?
They're the future. I don't care, but they're the future. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. But you know what? That step does not guarantee you are going to reach to that destination.
Yeah.
Continuous working will ensure you get to that stage. So one of the things that I pride myself for is that you don't need to have billions to be a philanthropist, right? Yeah. I did it, and I found the secret to success. It's giving.
Does it work on?
Hello, welcome to yet another episode of You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host. You and the Law is your ultimate program on all matters legal. Is it about land? Is it about health? Is it about property? Is it about criminal law? Anything that concerns the law, it's going to be discussed right here. In this particular edition, we're talking about the impacts of COVID-19 on human rights. And we have so many rights that we've been looking over the last few weeks. And today we're focusing on civil liberties. How has COVID-19 affected our enjoyment of civil liberties? What steps did the government put in place to protect our civil liberties? What are the challenges? What can be done to improve the enjoyment of civil liberties in the country amidst such a difficult time like we find ourselves in? With me in studio is our regular guest, Emmanuel Lau from Legal Hub Uganda. Emma, you're welcome to You and the Law.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
How have you been?
Once again. Been great.
Yeah. I know you've appeared here before and talked about, Legal Hub and the kind of things that you do and how COVID-19 has affected your work. But I thought just for those who could be watching for the first time today, we could just get a quick snapshot, 5 to 3 lines about, Legal Hub Uganda and the things that you do.
Well, thank you. Legal Hub Uganda is an organization that was started by 2 brilliant lawyers and started in 2017, went on to register as a non-governmental organization. But also importantly, Legal Hub Uganda intends to take the law to the last mile, to the last person in this country. So this is not just a focus on an urban person, but a person who is in a rural area, in the village. And so we're using different mechanisms to ensure that we reach the last mile in this country. And so we have different innovative ways that we have tried to utilize in order to achieve that objective. And that includes radio, podcasting, now we're on TV, and we keep growing. As time goes by, we'll keep finding other innovative ways to reach the last mile in this country.
Amazing stuff.
Yes.
And talking about generally COVID-19, how has it affected your work as an organization?
Well, COVID-19 has affected us in ways that were not imagined, many years ago. Because now you saw the government locking up the country. And with locking up the country, that meant that most of our activities, physical activities, could not happen because we have different programs. Because we do both online and offline activities. So the offline activities had to be put on hold. And to date, we have not yet fully recovered those offline activities. But nonetheless, it enabled us to emphasize more our usage of our online presence through our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and now the TV program, and that has enabled us to keep going in the meantime as we are waiting for the country to open up.
Fully. Yeah. So Emma, today we are focusing on civil liberties and how COVID-19 has impacted their enjoyment. And I thought we could start by understanding what civil liberties are. If you were to unpack this for an ordinary person, what would you tell them amounts to or equals to civil liberties?
Well, thank you. So when we talk about civil liberties, we're talking about the foundational rights that individuals have in order to enjoy their rights fully as human beings in this world. Because like we've stated in shows before on this very program, rights are inherent.
Yes.
They are not granted by the state. So as and when you're born, or whenever you're born with certain what? Rights. In fact, there's always that argument as to what point you begin enjoying rights. You know, and of course that's controversial. Is it in your mother's womb? You know, when you're conceived, do you start enjoying certain rights? Or it should be after birth? Because, you know, that sucks in the debate of abortion rights and things like that, which of course in this country is not yet fully embraced. But of course it happens. So these are foundational rights to do with conscience. You know, you need to have the right that you have to hold opinion, to conceive ideas, to express yourself in whichever ways that you may, you know, that you may want.
Yes.
You know, and that includes petitioning the government as and when you feel that certain things are not going on well, maybe for you personally, maybe for your community. You know, I remember so many years ago, there was a time Jose Chameleone was dissatisfied with the certain issues that happened in Tanzania. And you know, he picked a mattress and went and he started at the embassy of Tanzania.
Yes.
And of course he was apprehended at the time. So basically these are foundational rights that we have, as I've just listed.
And so what are the examples of civil liberties? Because it seems to be a broader term. Like what would you flag off as some of the rights that fall under this whole bracket of civil liberties?
Yes, thank you. So we're talking about freedom of expression, for example. Now, before you even express yourself, you need to have the freedom to conceive ideas.
Yes.
Your conscience must not be restricted. Because there are places where, in some parts of the world, where you're not free to think, even mere thinking, you know. If the government in place discovers that you're having ideas that they feel are detrimental to their own objectives, then they could have you apprehended.
Yes.
Places like North Korea, you know, and even some places in Africa until recently.
Yes.
You remember Libya,
Yeah.
you know, there was this whole idea that Paul had about restrictions that were happening. So you need to have a free conscience, you need to have freedom to express yourself, you need to have freedom of assembly,
Yes.
a freedom to petition government for whatever, you know, dissatisfaction that you may have with the government of the day. Yes.
And with that idea then, we need to have a quick run into the law, which law provides for the various civil liberties you've listed. You've talked about expression, you've talked about worship, you've talked about petitioning the government and those sort of examples. I thought that we could then delve into the legalese around this right, but perhaps that can be more appropriate after the short break. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. Today we're discussing civil liberties and how they've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's go for a short break. We'll be right back. COVID-19 came and disorganized our economy, brought our health system to its knees, and along the way, affected our rights significantly. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host.
When it comes to the law, we basically live the law, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you know. Whether it is in your bedroom, there is a law that governs it. If you're married, for example, even if you're single, there could be something touching on the law, because you might be in your bedroom with an underage girl, or you might be with another person's wife, you know. All the things are the law, you know.
If you're a human being, you have rights. Those rights are called human rights. They are examples: the right to health, the right to freedom from torture, that underscores human dignity. Freedom from slavery. You're not supposed to be someone's slave.
If you look at our penal code, it sets out another marriage laws. It sets out the persons who can marry and those who cannot marry, right? For example, you can't marry your close relatives. You know, if you did, you'd be committing a crime.
The state is not supposed to tell you who to worship, how to worship, how many times a day. No, you have a right to work. A right to work. You have freedom of association.
Cohabitation for whatever period of time does not make you husband and wife, right? And that is why we emphasize to people that when the relationship is still hot, you know, you must ensure that you do what? Marry.
Yes.
You know?
Welcome back. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host, and today we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on our civil liberties here in Uganda. And with me in studio is a regular, Emmanuel Elao from Legal Hub Uganda. Emma, you're welcome back from the break.
Thank you.
So, before we went for a break, we started the conversation around the legal framework that provides for the various civil liberties that you've highlighted. Yes. From the start. So I thought we could run through the law and to enable us, you know, establish the foundation of these rights.
Yes. Thank you. Like we have stated severally, you realize that when talking about the law, we have the different segments of the law. And that is the international and then the local.
Yes.
Or as lawyers prefer to call it, the international law and the municipal law, which is the law applicable within.
We must start thinking of municipalities in Uganda.
Exactly. So if you look at the international level, of course, at the international level, we're talking about the laws that are formulated by states, you know, when they meet. So states have the ability to make laws as between themselves. Previously, we have had, the subjects of international law, we used to be only states, but now it has since transformed. Even an individual today can be subject of international law.
Yes.
So looking at the Vienna Convention on the law of treaties, for example, it mandates every state to make some of these treaties. It also names which persons can conclude treaties within it. Now, so when states have an issue, including on human rights and other issues, they always meet together, maybe at a multilateral level, or even, as two states. So we have had several laws which have been concluded internationally with respect to the different freedoms. And that includes, first and foremost, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And of course, that's a favorite instrument to be mentioned because it is a very key document when it comes to talking about rights of the people and things like that. But of course there are others. If you talk about the Magna Carta and the like, which was concluded in the UK, applicable within. So if you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there are different articles that talk about the different civil liberties that we have. For example, Article 18, you know, that provides for conscience, you know, freedom of expression and the like. So you basically have to look at Article 18, 19, up to 20. It highlights those rights. So you have the right to hold an opinion, to conceive ideas. And holding ideas or conceiving them is very, very important because it enables any society to develop. There's a connection between the two. Because if you go to places like the US, they'll tell you about the Silicon Valley. You know, and people have all this free will to think. They have the right to create. And the bedrock of having the ability to create is embedded in some of these rights that we have already highlighted. And that's why you see people like Mark Zuckerberg are able to innovate and come up with Facebook, where everyone is able to, you know, share their ideas,
interconnect,
you know, and things like that. And now you've heard of Elon Musk, you know, who is now richer than Bill Gates and I think Warren Buffett combined. all this come as a result of people having the will to think and to create. So if we're able to have these rights, it has a connection with other rights that people...
And the economy.
Yes, and the economy. So the ability to think is very, very important.
Okay.
Now, once you're able to think, then you should be able to express yourself,
okay,
in the same vein. Now, freedom to express yourself is very key. Many states across the world, in fact, drawing from the UDHR, have provided for this right already in their different regional instruments, in their national constitutions. But of course, always the issue is that the challenge is about the enforcement of the same. Because the law might be saying that you have the right to this, but enforcement becomes another issue altogether.
Yes.
We're talking about the freedom to religion. You have the ability to choose your religion as and when you want, and also to live religion if you want to. So you should not be bound by by all these things of belonging to a certain religious inclination if you do not want to. So if you look at different parts of the world, including Uganda, this right is really very much emphasized. Though we see that in some places maybe this is under threat, in some places they have state religions. But in Uganda specifically, for example, we do not have a state religion.
We're a secular state.
Uganda is a secular state, guaranteed under the UDHR. Another very important right is the freedom of assembly.
Yes.
The freedom of assembly. So if you want to assemble with others and to probably criticize or give a petition to the government of the day on any issue that's affecting you, then you also have a right, which is guaranteed as per the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Of course, some people might argue that, what's the UDHR? How does it apply to us? Well, it may have been concluded before we got even independence.
Yes.
But some of these laws have gained customary application internationally. So today you cannot come up and go against some of these rights because they are already provided for and have gained customary application. And so if you go against them, then you'll be violating international laws.
Okay.
The other very important instrument is the ICCPR, which is the Covenant on Civil Political Rights. So this also provides for the same rights as I've already stated under the UDHR. So I need not emphasize because they're similar in their provision of those same rights. Only that the ICPR came long after the UDHR. If we come to our regional level, that is the African continent, we also have instruments that speak to the same rights. So we have what we call the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. That charter sometimes is called the Banjul Charter because it was concluded in Banjul.
That's in the Gambia.
Yes, in the Gambia.
Yeah.
So looking at that instrument, it also provides for those similar rights in the different parts of that charter. Freedom of assembly, religion, expression, conscience, which speaks to the same issues that I have already explained under the UDHR. When we come closer home, at the regional level here in the East African community, we have the treaty which is establishing the East African community. Now, if you look at that treaty, under Article 7, 8, 9, it provides for the operational principles that are applicable and the fundamental principles. And among others, it recognizes democracy, rule of law, human rights, and the like. And specifically, that treaty recognizes the Banjul Charter, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. So you can see that the East African community recognizes these rights, but instead of coming up with their own Bill of Rights, an instrument to cater for human rights within the community, they have just decided to adopt the Banjul Charter into the East African community.
Oh, just wholesome.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
But of course, this has also created debate. Some people are saying that maybe the East African community should come up with their own Bill of Rights. Others are saying it would be a wastage of resources and the like because we have this document, and since our ultimate objective is to integrate Africa as a whole, why should we have now regional instruments providing for the same?
Okay.
So those are two competing views, but it appears those who are for the Banjul Charter being the main document are
carrying the day.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that means that what that means is that the governments within the East African community. The East African community is basically composed of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan. Though DRC and also Somalia have expressed interest to join.
Are they still in the east of Africa?
Yeah, so it's expanding because the treaty says whichever country shares a border with one of the partner states can join.
Oh, okay.
That's why you see the DRC, which is on the other side now, intending to join because it shares a border with the Uganda, Rwanda, and others. Yeah, so that means that the governments within the community are enjoined to respect these rights, among others. So, but if you come closer home, in Uganda,
yes.
Now this is what we're talking about, the municipal law,
yes.
the law which is applicable within our country.
Yes.
We have the Constitution of Uganda of 1995. Now, if you look at that Constitution specifically, it first of all it says it is the supreme law.
Yes.
It says power belongs to the people. It is the supreme law. Any other law which is inconsistent is null and void.
Yes.
And so, Uganda being a signatory to different international instruments is therefore enjoined to recognize some of those rights at the local level. So, if you went to to Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Uganda, it specifically provides for the fundamental rights that people have, the civil rights, among others. So, it emphasizes aspects to do with equality, as a starting point. All of us are equal under the law. We have the freedom of expression under Article 29, freedom to hold opinions. We have the freedom of to exercise our religion. We have a right to fair hearing, And like I said earlier, Uganda is a secular state. We do not have a state religion, for example. So that means that everybody, has a right to practice some form of religion.
Yes.
Of course, we have the non-formal religions, either you belong to Islam or you belong to whatever denomination in Christianity. But we also do have people who practice what? Traditional religions.
Yes.
They do exist.
Yeah.
Except that, of course, sometimes there's mob justice from people who subscribe the main religious organizations, either Christianity or Islam. Who don't want to give space to traditionalists, and yet they also have guaranteed rights, to practice whatever religion it is that they may choose to call it. So the Constitution guarantees these rights, and so we have a right to enjoy them. But whereas the Constitution provides for them, some of these rights are not absolute.
Yes.
Some of them are limited. If you look at Article 44 of the Constitution, they can be limited by the state. But the parameters under which the state can do this, it can't just wake up and deny you your rights.
Yes.
So there are only about 4 rights which cannot be derogated from, but the rest of these rights could easily be, depending.
So most of the civil liberties can be withdrawn.
They could be withdrawn under certain circumstances. So if you see government doing ABCD, then what you have to question is whether the government is doing it in a right manner, in a proper manner, with good intentions, and that the people know the limitations expressly, as opposed to where government just wakes up and does things like the way it wants.
Emma, you've given a very comprehensive legal background to this discussion. Then can we have a conversation around the obligations? Who has the duty to ensure that these rights are protected?
Well, thank you. Now, of course, government bears a very good responsibility in terms of ensuring that these rights are protected. But it doesn't stop with the government alone. It also extends to us as individuals to ensure that your neighbors, rights are respected. So because of the machinery that the government has, the state, it's able to protect or to ensure compliance, with some of the set rules in place.
What do you mean by machinery? People might think of actual.
Well, what we're talking in terms of the apparatus that the government has, in terms of the security personnel, for example, because it is the biggest employer of the security.
Some people say instruments of coercion.
Exactly. So the government has those instruments. So government has the security, it has the guns, the money. So it has a duty, to ensure that there's compliance. But how about in certain instances where you find yourself in a group of with a group of other people, and one of the persons in the group is their rights are not probably being abused. don't you have an obligation as an individual to that extent? At least to inform them that this person has a right to, to ABCD, as guaranteed by the Constitution. But the government bears a great responsibility.
Okay. Yeah. That's sort of a good foundation then for us to switch to the discussion around COVID-19. Like we've discussed in the show before, the advent of the global pandemic switched the world into a different mode and changed how we do things. And but along the way, of course, some of the actions that were taken had significant implications on civil liberties. So
yes,
I want us to have a discussion on how has COVID-19 actually affected the enjoyment of civil liberties in Uganda.
Well, thank you. Like I've said also before, the advent of the coming of COVID into the world threw several governments into panic across the world. And we're not spared as well. At least for us, we had the benefit of seeing that COVID is coming, but maybe we chose to ignore in some ways. So government had to react in certain ways. And you saw the president addressing the media and the people of Uganda on several occasions about COVID. And so certain rights were suspended for a time being. And I think the situation has not yet changed. It may have changed, but with some limitations. For example, the freedom of, of worship, religion, it was restricted to a certain extent, especially from last year. And I think up to now, we can only have about 200 people in a religious function at any given time. But of course, if you move out there, people are maybe abusing this. But at least the government restricted that freedom. They said you cannot congregate because if you do, then COVID is likely to spread, to the different people, people who may be in attendance. So freedom of worship was affected. So there was a shift from the physical attendance of worship to to online worship. But luckily, the Bible says that where 2 or 3 gather, the Holy Spirit is available. And I want to believe that the scripture is right. So I think people have had to change the way they view or to actually practice what the Bible says in certain respects. Freedom of assembly was also affected in some ways because now the desire to watch the number of people that gather in a given place overrode that particular freedom. And you know that we had elections, for example, in the course of last year and early this year. And so government had to come up with the restrictions. I think the restriction was that there could only be 200 people
in a rally.
But of course, you saw how hard it was for government to enforce such. And so the result was a lot of tear gas during the election cycle that just passed. People's ability also to express themselves. COVID has brought issues to do with immunization to the fore. So how do you balance? Because some people are saying that you must get immunized for you to survive the scourge. Others are saying it should also be within my right
to choose
whether to get immunized or not. So those are competing views that are currently happening in the world. But because most governments in the world are very much interested to toe the official line from the World Health Organization to do with immunization. So there's a lot of kind of limited space for those that have views that are opposed to that. So that's why you see, if you go to platforms, even international like YouTube, they do not permit views that go contrary to immunization.
Even Facebook, if you see anything with COVID, there's a disclaimer, warning that comes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe it raises issues to do with freedom of expression, but which has been exposed by this COVID. And Uganda has not been as well spared. It's because we have different laws in place that cater to this, including the Immunization Act and other laws. So those are some of the ways that certain rights were affected during this period of COVID. Yeah.
And Emma, if we are to examine those interventions that were put in place, of course they're justifiable.
Yes.
You and I agree on that.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, are there those that worked or that enabled people preserve their civil liberties amidst that tough time that we find ourselves in?
Well, looking at the general objectives of these restrictions, because if you're looking at restricting rights, then you have to be precise. Government must be precise with the kind of laws or regulations that they put in place in order for it to pass the international test.
Yes.
Now, if government, of course, again, there's this whole thing of the president's directives and all that, and as to whether they amount to law. You know, so we saw several directives coming from the president through his speeches. But of course, those speeches were sanitized by the Minister of Health because she was mandated to. The office holder was female,
yes,
and is female now.
Yeah.
So she sanitized most of the president's speeches through reducing them into regulations.
Yes.
So I believe the general objective, you know, for some of these restrictions was for public good.
Yes.
And I believe that some of these regulations in place achieved a certain, you know, public good of preserving, of protecting people from getting
the spread.
Yes. Yeah, so amidst that, of course, people were able to enjoy some of those rights still because most of the radio stations were operating and so people were able to express themselves.
Journalists were actually essential workers.
Journalists were essential workers up to now. In
Yeah.
fact, ahead of lawyers. You know? So that shows you how important information is.
Yeah.
You know, so several TV stations were working. At least many were not affected in any way.
That's a positive note, and I think it's about time we go for a short break. You're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. Today we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on our civil liberties in Uganda, and we're examining the government measures and how they affected our civil liberties. Let's go for a short break. We'll be right back. COVID-19 came and disorganized our economy, brought our health system to its knees, and along the way, affected our rights significantly. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host.
Human rights to be respected, protected, and fulfilled, relevant government programs must actually work. Medicine should reach hospitals, oxygen should be there, health workers should have gloves, teachers should be present. Now they are mostly absent, and they have left the profession, a good number of them. They are into trading. So things must work. If things don't work, human rights are not respected, are not protected, and are not fulfilled.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television, coming soon.
Welcome back from the short break. You're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television, proudly brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda in partnership with I4C Africa Hub. And today with me in studio is Emmanuel Lau from Legal Hub Uganda, where we're discussing the impacts of COVID-19 on our civil liberties in the country. Emma, welcome back from the break.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we broke off at the point when you're talking about, you know, the justification for restricting civil liberties. because in your view, perhaps that's what everybody could say, that, yeah, the situation demanded or permitted government to deviate a little bit because of the extraordinary times we found ourselves in. But I want to any forms of derogation from civil liberties.
Well, thank you. So if you look at the international level, at least there are some guidelines which have been put in place in order that under any circumstances. And among others, the first that government needs to take into account is that the restriction